Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad, back with you with Toad Stool Sports. It is Wednesday, January 28th. We went 1-1 on the show yesterday. We kind of got screwed with East Texas A&M, to be honest. I mean, they were winning that game outright with like 14 minutes left in the game, and then they wound up losing in a blowout. I have no idea how that happened. I got to look at the box score, but I think it was probably some sort of BS going on there. I mean, I don't know how you allow a team to go on a run like that in the final 10 or so minutes of the game. We got the win with these guys right here. The Seattle Kraken. This is my Matty Beignets jersey, however you pronounce it. Beignet. Dude, I want some beignets right now, man. Those, like, New Orleans donuts. Yeah, give me some of those things. He's a Massachusetts guy, South Shore, so we're gonna represent. Got this Kraken jersey on here. They got an easy win for us last night, 5-1. We're going to get into today. We got a lot of college basketball. Wednesday is the most packed day besides Saturday for college basketball. I'm going to have 5 plays. Jeffrey's going to hate all of it because they're all favorites. We're laying a whole bunch of favorites today, man. That's just the way that it worked out. We have underdogs in NHL and NBA. I have 1 in each. And that's the way it's going to be. I spilled water all over my keyboard. I'm really, I'm up against it right now, man. I'm hoping everything's fine with the keyboard. I emptied the water out of the keyboard. I flipped it over. I toweled it off. I don't have rice, so I don't know, man. Oh, rice. We're going to talk about their basketball team probably. I don't know what else to say, but yeah, hopefully my keyboard's fine. Hopefully I sound fine, whatever. Tyson, what's up? Yes, thanks for hanging out. Dirty Sock, what's up? Good morning. Kyle, what's up, everybody? Beignets, yeah, I mean, dude, I'm a fat ass, so anything that's donut-esque, yeah, I'm going to be down with that, yeah. Any fried dough of any form, give it to me. Hopefully we make some dough here today after the small loss yesterday. Alexander, what's up, man? All right, let's get into it here. A lot of college basketball we got to run down, man. I got plays all over the place here. Sound is good. It was just water. It was a bottle of water. I knocked it over onto the keyboard pretty much. So it hit like the left side of the keyboard. I flipped the keyboard over. Some water poured out of it. I toweled everything off, and that's all I could really do right now. So I don't know. All right. Let's get into it here. The first game up, I mean, it's not on TV anywhere. There might be a stream of this if anybody wants to watch Mississippi Valley State, the Delta Devils, and Southern in this SWAC game between the worst team in Division I and a team that's legitimate in the SWAC conference, at least. Mississippi Valley State still hasn't won a legitimate game. I mean, they only won that game against the Mississippi College for Women, not a D1 team. They're coming off yet another loss. No surprise here. Still looking to get a win, though, man. So they're going to try to show up at least, but for Southern's coming off a pretty bad loss to Arkansas Pine Bluff. Southern definitely the better of the two teams. Southern were 9.5-point favorites in this game pretty much, so they're coming off a pretty ugly upset home loss. So I think the only way that I could look at this game is to lay the points with Southern, but I mean, we're laying a lot of points today, man, in some of these games. If this is the only action you want, though, you're having to lay 21.5 with this Southern team if you really want that. But if you're doing it, I mean, Mississippi Valley State is the worst team in all of D1, so it's not, the number's not like that out of line or anything for that matchup. But that's probably what I would do because you're getting the better team, Southern, in a focus spot. The problem is, though, of course, they can easily win the game without covering. Just get in, get out, and move on, so that's kind of the problem. I don't even know who they play next. I'm not really a SWAC guy, though. I'm a SWAG guy. They play Alcorn State next. That's not a big deal at all. So Southern might actually focus on that game. Then there's the 3 p.m. game, I think, actually is not happening. I think it got postponed, maybe. Arkansas Pine Bluff at Grambling. I'm not sure because I saw a line on it, though. There is a line. Grambling's -4.5. I don't know. I don't know about this game, man. But Pine Bluff, as I just pointed out, they just upset Southern. They did break a 3-game losing streak, but second straight road game, coming off a big upset like that. I think if you're going to play this game, I would probably lay the points with Grambling. Yet another favorite here. Grambling just lost to Southern, but it was an ugly loss. But people might look at this game and say, well, because if anybody wants this afternoon action and it's only SWAC that you can bet on here, well, Grambling just lost at home to Southern, and Pine Bluff just went on the road and upset Southern. So, of course, Pine Bluff is going to cover as a 4.5-point underdog here, right? Like, that might be the way the public might look at this. I would not look at it that way. Grambling coming off that pretty ugly loss there to Southern, staying at home. If I was going to play the game, I would lay the points with Grambling in that one. Mr. Penzi, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. I don't know what that like emoji is or that sticker is. It's a pink hand, man. Getting caught pink-handed. And then we have this isolated 6 p.m. game between Lehigh and Army. I don't really have anything on this game at all. Not even really an opinion. Lehigh's won 5 of their last 6 games, though, so they're actually climbing up the ranks in the Patriot League. Army is a terrible team, though, and Lehigh does play Colgate next. Lehigh already beat Colgate once on the road in an upset, but Colgate is still always a pretty big deal when you play them in this conference, so they could definitely overlook a pretty bad Army team here. Army just got totally embarrassed by Navy in their last game, almost lost by 30, although Navy is obviously the way better team there. But I would, I guess, probably lean to Army in that game if I was going to do anything with it, which I will not. But it's an ugly, ugly game. Lehigh's only a 2.5-point favorite, though, so it almost looks too easy to lay the points with Lehigh. But I lean Army in that one if you made me give you an opinion on it. Baylor at Cincinnati, the first big conference game of the day. Fox Sports 1, 6:30 p.m. Baylor's really struggling right now. I mean, I had them as a bubble team, like potentially on the cusp of being a tournament team, but not with what they've been doing, man. This resume is nowhere near good enough. They just took another loss to TCU, getting season swept by TCU. Couldn't even beat them at home. I thought Baylor was going to win that game. They didn't. They're in struggle mode now, man. The struggle sessions. Now they're having to go up to Cincinnati, which is not the most familiar environment for them because Cincinnati hasn't been in this conference that long. Cincinnati may bounce back because they did just do the Arizona trip and they lost both games. Now they're back home, but they do also have Houston next. So there's a possible look ahead there to Houston, man. The Cincinnati, they know they're not going anywhere this year, so it's like, which games are they going to get up for when they know they're not going to be a tournament team this year or anything? Well, Houston's obviously going to be one they get up for. They got up for them last time as well. So there is the possibility that they don't take Baylor that seriously. Cincinnati has been better at home, though. They only lost by 7 to Houston at home. They won their other home games, including one over Iowa State and the other one being Colorado. So their conference home results have been pretty good. What do we have for a line? What do we have for the market read here? The money is coming in on Cincinnati, it looks like, for what it's worth, even though they dropped from 4.5 to 4. 50-50 on the tickets, 66% of the cash on Cincinnati, though. So the market read is saying to lay it with Cincinnati. Yet another favorite there. I mean, I don't know, man. To me, it seems like Baylor's the more desperate team. Cincinnati might be looking ahead. I mean, Cincinnati is actually probably further away from being a tournament team than Baylor is, believe it or not, just based on the resume so far, like the out-of-conference resume and whatever. So I kind of disagree. I would probably lead towards taking it with Baylor, but I don't like the game at all. Butler at St. John's, who's now back in the rankings at 25. I think it is justified. I've been saying I think St. John's underrated because they took some tough losses in the out-of-conference slate, but now that's paying dividends because they're playing pretty well in conference play because they are pretty battle-tested. This game's on Peacock, 7 p.m. Butler, they'll show up for a game like this, though. Butler's coming off an easy win over Marquette. They're bringing some momentum into this game. They already lost at home to St. John's, so it is one of those road reversal revenge angles here where St. John's might overlook Butler because they already beat Butler on the road. So, what's Butler really? St. John's, now I could see this going two ways because St. John's just barely got by Xavier. Not a good performance from St. John's. They were actually losing a lot of that game. They came back and won. St. John's was a double-digit favorite in that game. And I talk about when a double-digit favorite has an escape like that, a lot of times they will be focused in the next game. But I'm not so sure because that Xavier game, that was the battle of the Patinos, dude. Richard Pitino is Xavier's coach now, so it was son versus father.
Yeah, inside, I want to kill myself.
So it was Rick versus Richard in that game. The father was able to get the win, so that was probably a pretty big emotional win, though, for St. John's. So there are factors going both ways in this game, man. The money is saying Butler. I will agree with it. St. John's up from 11.5 to 12.5 here. I'll agree and roll with it being more of a kind of a letdown spot for St. John's off of winning the Pitino battle there. 68% of the tickets on St. John's, 66% of the cash on Butler. So the money is agreeing with Butler here. I won't disagree with it. And you do still have that road revenge angle for Butler there, which I like. When a team lost at home and now they're the road underdog, that is the way to usually look. So that'll be my opinion there, but not a really strong opinion. Northern Iowa at Southern Illinois. Missouri Valley game here. I know I've talked about every game so far. I'm not going to, but I think these games are interesting. Northern Iowa just broke a long losing streak. They broke a 5-game losing streak, and I talk about how when teams break a losing streak, sometimes it gives them new momentum moving forward. The problem is Northern Iowa beat Murray State, who's one of the best teams in this conference, in the Missouri Valley. That was a huge win for Northern Iowa, so there's the worry that they might be in kind of a hangover mode here against Southern Illinois. These teams have not played yet this year, and Southern Illinois is an under-the-radar team still, man. I keep talking about how they're underrated. I think they are. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now. They've been sitting on this loss to Valpo for a long time, and I think that was an explainable loss because they'd already beaten Valpo once, and they beat Belmont the game before that, which was a huge win, Belmont being probably the best team in this conference. So I think Southern Illinois was kind of in a letdown spot there, and this sets up a little bit better for Southern Illinois, too, because they had a game against Evansville postponed. So Southern Illinois has had a long time off, and that could help break this 4-game losing streak here, man. I think they've been off for like a week, I want to say now. So when everything's going wrong for you and everything's bad and you're losing all these games, it's actually good to have time off. So I think they will show up focused in this game. And people are going to look at this and say, well, Northern Iowa has a winning record. Southern Illinois has a losing record. And Southern Illinois is actually a small favorite here. Like, why would the public, if they look at this game, why would they want to play Southern Illinois in this game, right? They wouldn't. But that is the way that I would lean in this game. Because I think you got a letdown spot on the side of Northern Iowa here. Southern Illinois has moved up a little bit to a 1.5-point favorite. Like I said, 86% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on Northern Iowa. But again, I disagree with that. Like, the line is kind of telling you what you need to know, telling you that these two teams are kind of close to each other. Northern Iowa is the better team, but not by that much, and they're in the worst spot here. Now, I looked at Ken Bum on this, though, and Northern Iowa is an underrated team, according to him, though, and they do play really good defense. Technically, Northern Iowa is the better defense here, getting points. Southern Illinois is still under the radar, though. Ken Baum has them as one of the 5 unluckiest teams in the entire country. So they are a play-on team, although both these teams are unlucky, according to Ken Baum. Southern Illinois is also good defensively, actually. Both of these teams are good on defense and not so good on offense. Southern Illinois likes to speed the game up, though, even though they're more of a defensive team, which Northern Iowa does not want to do. They want to slow the game down. So Southern Illinois might be able to up the tempo here a little bit. So I like Southern Illinois in this one, man. I don't know, why was this not on my card, though, I guess is the question. It seems like it should be. I guess the one reason why maybe you would keep it off, like I've kept it off my card, I guess I will still keep it off. It's close to being a play for me, though, which is why I'm talking about it. Northern Iowa, I mean, again, when you break a losing streak like that, sometimes it will give you new momentum coming into the next game. So maybe we'll see that with Northern Iowa here. That would be the one, I guess, concern there because they are coming off a nice win. They were probably a favorite in this game against Murray State, though. No, they were actually a small dog. Never mind. It was close to a pick 'em. But either way, big win for Northern Iowa. I'll stay away from the game. But, yes, I like Southern Illinois in that game. That would be my opinion in that game. Okay. Next up, my first play that I actually have is a real ugly one, man. We have some ugly plays today, man, and they're favorites. Ugly favorites. We're going to lay the points with Fordham, -4.5. We're going to go back to trusty Fordham, although I think the last time I gave them out, they pushed as an underdog. But first of all, the odds makers are telling you Fordham is better than LaSalle. LaSalle sucks, okay? They do, but LaSalle has the better Atlantic 10 record right now. They have the better conference record, but it might be a little bit misleading. LaSalle, I mean, they have faced a decent schedule so far here. Let me see about Fordham, though. Actually, yeah, LaSalle's faced a more difficult schedule, so I don't know what's going on with that. But Ken Baum does have Fordham as one of the unluckiest teams in the country. He has them as the 8th or 9th unluckiest team in the country. They play pretty good defense, and they play slow, but they're not good offensively, so that's what you get out of Fordham. But LaSalle's just not good on either side of the ball, man. Fordham is the better defense here. I know we're laying points here. LaSalle also does play slow. I know I don't love laying points with slow teams, but we're doing it today, man. Changing it up a little bit for today. He has LaSalle somewhat unlucky as well, but he's got Fordham even unluckier. And the thing that put me over the edge is the situation here, obviously. Not the dude from Jersey Shore. I make that joke too much. I got to get some new material, man. But yeah, Fordham, like both of these teams are pretty bad offensively, but the big difference between these two teams is Fordham is clearly the better defensive team. So there is a pretty wide gap there between how good the defenses are. Also, LaSalle, I'm just not sold on LaSalle being that good, but they're also coming off a big upset of Dayton, which is why I wanted to play Dayton in their last game, right? So Dayton was coming off this bad upset loss to LaSalle. I thought Dayton would bounce back after that, and they didn't, unfortunately for us. But if we look at this game, Dayton had a terrible shooting game. They shot 13% from three. LaSalle had 10 more free throw attempts. So some things misleading about this game. It was kind of a close game statistically otherwise. Dayton did out-rebound LaSalle by a little bit, but LaSalle's just not as good as they look, man. And they pulled off this upset here. It was a 9.5, 10-point upset in that game, so it was a huge upset. And they've just been sitting on that, I think, for a week or so. So I think LaSalle hasn't played for a week, coming off one of their, like, probably their biggest win of the year. They haven't played for a week. That's not what you want, man. You don't want to have a week off. It's like having a bye, like I talk about in the NFL. When you have a week off and you just had a really great game, yeah, you don't want to have a week off because you're just basking in it. You know, it can ruin your momentum. Now they got to play Fordham, which I think is, oh, they play Fordham again later in the season. Actually, I was going to say, I think they only play them once, but no, that's not true. But they play Fordham, who's just way down near the bottom of the conference right now. And up next, LaSalle has St. Joe's. Well, why does that matter? Well, St. Joe's is a Philadelphia rival with LaSalle, so that's an in-city rivalry. It's going to be a TV game. That's on Saturday, a few days from now on USA Network. So that's going to be a big game for LaSalle against St. Joe's. They actually, I don't think they didn't play St. Joe's in the Philadelphia round robin, I guess because they're conference opponents, so they actually play St. Joe's again at the very end of the season. But it is a rivalry, and not only is it a rivalry, but I believe St. Joe's is the team that eliminated LaSalle, from the tournament last year. It was a close game from the A-10 tournament. So St. Joe's is the team that ended LaSalle's season last year too. So it is a pretty big revenge game for LaSalle facing St. Joe's next as well. So I consider that to definitely be a look ahead. And, people who don't dig deep might not see that is actually a pretty huge look ahead. St. Joe's is also doing pretty well in conference too. So that's another reason to maybe look ahead to that. So I think the spot is really bad for LaSalle. For Fordham, they just haven't been able to win these conference games yet, man. But, do you expect them to win, against Dayton? I know LaSalle beat Dayton, but Fordham lost to them on the road. They lost at home to Richmond, lost at home to George Mason. Those are not bad losses. They lost at St. Louis. Come on. They had to play at Davidson. So Fordham has not had the easiest conference schedule at all, man. And for LaSalle, they did face... Well, I guess they did face Rhode Island, but they faced a difficult schedule otherwise as well. Both teams have faced St. Bonaventure and won. That was Fordham's only win. But Fordham's now coming off a loss to Davidson. I know they were an underdog in that game, and they played fairly well at Davidson. But at this point, I don't see Fordham overlooking anybody, man. They're back home where they lost their last home game to Duquesne, pretty ugly. I see them showing up in the game, man. And I think it's a horrible spot for LaSalle. And that's basically, that's what we have going on in this game. Double checking it with Ken Bum. Ken Bum has the line about around this number as well, I think. So we're going to go with Fordham minus the points in that one, man. And for Ken Bum's purposes, he does have Fordham as the better team. He has them almost to the top 200. Yeah, great. And he has LaSalle 20 ranking spots lower. But, judging based on how many ranking spots lower doesn't tell you everything. Like, you still have to figure out, how many points are they separated by? Well, the odds makers are basically telling you Fordham's like a point or two better here, plus they're getting home court advantage, which I think is about correct. All right. CBS Sports, we have Davidson at George Mason in the A-10. Davidson just had a pretty close loss at home to VCU, man. That was a big game for Davidson. So the problem here is they might be hung over a little bit after that big game. But they also might not overlook George Mason because George Mason is still near the top of the conference, only behind St. Louis, who won in a crazy game last night. If you saw St. Louis, they came back and won last night against George Washington, and Robbie Avila hit a buzzer beater 3 to win the game in regulation when it was tied. Crazy stuff, man. St. Louis, that St. Louis team, they make all of their shots, man. But anyway, Davidson could be hung over a little bit here. It's going to be tough for them to travel and have 2 huge games in a row, although they obviously won't overlook George Mason. But George Mason's coming off a fairly ugly loss at Rhode Island, so they might be in bounce-back mode here after a bad loss. So I think I have to lean towards George Mason in this game. But the problem is, what do I always talk about? When a team has a long win streak like George Mason did, they hadn't lost since losing to Virginia Tech in the middle of non-conference play. George Mason had not lost in A-10 play yet either. And then they finally take a loss. I think that can hang you over a little bit. And we've seen that happen almost every time this year, that a long win streak has been snapped. That team essentially loses the same game twice. So that has me concerned a little bit about George Mason there. So it's a stay away from me. I would slightly lean towards laying the points with George Mason, though, based on what the teams did in their last games. But I can't get there with that one. Rice, I told you I would talk about Rice. Rice at East Carolina. This game, for some reason, is on ESPNU. I don't know why. How does this game get the billing? No clue. These two teams are both bad. But Rice is coming off a pretty good performance against Tulsa. So I'm looking at this, and they played Temple fairly well the game before that. So Rice is coming off 2 pretty good performances. They could be in a bit of a hangover spot here, man. They just only lost by 6 to Tulsa. So I told you I thought Rice would play better. Rice had been annihilated by Tulsa the first time they played them on the road. So I think Tulsa just looked right past them, and Rice gave them a good performance and only lost by 6. So I don't really trust Rice coming off a performance like that. East Carolina just got their first conference win. So I do talk about this. Again, it's kind of the reverse of the other trend that I just talked about, where when a team breaks a losing streak. Now, I think that it can give them new momentum moving forward, right? Like whichever streak you break, whether it's a winning streak or a losing streak, it basically gives you new momentum, either in the negative or the positive. You know what I mean? So East Carolina finally got their first conference win. That monkey's off their back. Now they can play with momentum. The problem is that win was a huge upset on the road at North Texas. So I don't know if I could trust East Carolina off a huge upset like that, man. And they do play Florida Atlantic next, and FAU is the top team in the conference right now, at least standings-wise, even though I think Tulsa is actually better than they are. So East Carolina is actually kind of in a sandwich spot, so I cannot play either team in this game. The money is saying East Carolina for what it's worth. They're up from 1-2 here. 85% of the tickets are on Rice, 71% of the cash on East Carolina. I won't disagree with it. Again, Rice is coming off 2 tough performances in a row. I know East Carolina pulled off that upset, but North Texas is not like, they're not like near the top of the conference standings wise at least. And East Carolina at least has that new momentum, and they might not really overlook anybody being a 1-win conference team. So I don't disagree with East Carolina in that game. It's just a tough spot for both teams. The Big Ten Network game that we have at 7 p.m., I'm going to give you a play on this one, man. We're gonna lay the points with Iowa. I put one too many A's in it, man. It's like I don't have the drop. I don't have any Simpsons drops, but it's like, welcome, you're invited to Homer's BBBBQ. BBBQ. The extra B is for BYOBB. What's that extra B for? A typo. Oh, man. That's when the episode where Lisa's a vegetarian. Classic episode, back when the Simpsons used to be good. But yes, we're going to lay the points with Iowa here, man, even though I know Iowa, they slow the game way down. So laying points, maybe not the greatest idea with a slow-down team like this, but we're going to do it anyway. USC likes to play fast, and I don't think they're going to be able to really accomplish that here. So Iowa's going to slow them down and probably totally frustrate them. But look at the spot that we have here. USC just upset Wisconsin. Now they're having to go from Madison, Wisconsin to Iowa, so they're playing back-to-back road games here within a span of, I don't know what it is, 3 or 4 days maybe. Huge upset win over Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I mean, they're a staple of the Big Ten. USC was probably about a 7.5 point dog in that game, maybe bigger. Big upset for USC, though. Let me see, what was it? Yeah, it was 7.5 or so, 8. So big upset, man, for USC in that game. Wisconsin maybe was just in a bit of a bad spot there. Wisconsin shot terribly in the game, though, man. Wisconsin had more possessions in the game. They out-rebounded USC, but they lost the game because they shot 34% from the field. Horrible shooting performance that you don't usually see out of Wisconsin, so that was a bit of an outlier. USC got a little bit lucky that was the case, I think, because USC is not a very good defensive team, and USC did have some more free throws in the game as well, but that might have just been, something that happened at the end of the game or whatever. But either way, USC's coming off a huge upset win. Now they got to try to do it again at Iowa. I'm just not sure I see it happening, man. They don't have anything big up next. It's Rutgers, but Iowa's a little bit under the radar right now because they're in the middle of the pack conference-wise, and Iowa's coming off a bad game where they had pulled off a nice win over Indiana. Look at the run that Iowa made leading up to their last game against Rutgers. Iowa played Illinois to within 6, and Illinois is a legit team, man. Iowa played Purdue on the road to within 7. Very good performance from Iowa there, too. Purdue is really good and really difficult to beat at home. And then Iowa beat Indiana soundly by 17 on the road. So Iowa can win by margin, man. And Indiana's a fast-paced team, too. So the thing about this is Illinois and Purdue both play slow. But Indiana plays fast like USC does, I'm pretty sure. And Iowa was able to knock the doors off of them and actually get some more scoring done there because Indiana, they're just weaker defensively. Actually, Indiana plays slower. My mistake. I'm not as slow as Iowa, but Indiana's also not good defensively, though. So anyway, Iowa was able to beat them by 17. That was a big win for Iowa on the road against Indiana, who's still got that name recognition around them. And I think after that run, Iowa just didn't really have a lot of focus in this game against Rutgers, man. And Iowa almost lost the game to Rutgers at home. Only won by 6, but this game was a real scare, man, for Iowa. Rutgers had chances to win the game. They were winning in the second half, and this game was a one-possession game in the final minute. before Iowa was able to finally put it away. Not a good performance from Iowa. Staying at home now. They don't have a bigger game on deck, even though they do have to go to the Pacific Coast, but it's Oregon, who's been playing awful. So I expect Iowa to show up for this game against a USC team that's been hot right now. I like Iowa in this one, man. And looking at Ken Baum's rankings, yes, Iowa, of course, is the slower-paced team. Ken Baum has Iowa in the top 25, so they're pretty underranked right now. He has them 303 in luck, so he has them quite unlucky as a team. And they're pretty balanced, actually, even though they're better defensively than offensively. They're in the top 40 in both and top 20 in defense, which is not bad. He has USC a little bit more imbalanced. USC is actually better defensively than offensively, believe it or not, which I did not think was the case because they are a fast-paced team. But I think Iowa might be able to slow them down, frustrate them. Iowa's the better team on both sides of the ball, man, because both teams are better defensively than offensively. Iowa's better on offense and on defense than USC is. And USC plays fast, and they're the 14th luckiest team in the country, according to Ken Baum. So he's telling you that they've way overperformed to get to that record they have. He's got them as the 50th best team in the country. So I think there might actually be some value in this line on Iowa, and the money seems to agree with me on this one. Iowa's already gone up from 9.5 to 10, man. So this one, you might have to get on it before the line gets out of control. I mean, at least in basketball, 10's not a key number because it's not football. But I would say, yeah, try to get in on that. At least the total's not in the 130s. It's in the 140s. But we're hoping that Iowa's defense can really keep USC's offense, which isn't really even that good, in check enough to do this. 70% of the tickets are on USC. The public wants USC in this one, man, because they don't like these slow-paced, ugly teams. They think the line looks too big. USC, I think, has a slightly better overall record, too, so nobody's going to want to lay points like this. But the odds makers are telling you Iowa is the better team. They got 67% of the cash on them. Iowa is the play in that game, man. I like it. I think the situation sets up nicely for it as well. I think it's a situational play and a numbers play that both line up on it. And like I said, Iowa has been able to win by margin against some of these teams here at home. Iowa beat UCLA by 13, so that's not bad. They killed Maryland at home, although Maryland is awful. And then I'm just looking at conference play really here. That's basically it besides the games that I already mentioned. So there's not a whole lot to go on there with what Iowa's done at home, but I think they do have the ability to do this against USC, especially in this spot. Okay. Cal at Florida State is on ACC Network at 7 p.m. This is a weird game. And it's, first of all, it's a really interesting game because the line is really interesting. Like, why is Florida State a 3.5-point favorite when they have one conference win and their record is horrendous at 8-12 and Cal is 15-5? It doesn't make any sense. And I don't even know if I agree with this line because Ken Baum actually has Cal as the better team, although not by that much. But he has this game being like close to a pick-em, I think. So I don't really get the 3.5. But when I see a line like this and the team that has the way worse record is a favorite like this, it does make me notice. Yeah, I become a noticer. It makes me notice that line in that game. Now, some of it might have to do with the spot. Cal's having to fly from Stanford to Florida here. That was a big win for them over Stanford. They're coming off two big wins, man. They beat UNC out in California, and then they beat Stanford, who's a California rival of theirs, on the road. Now they're having to fly from Northern California, basically, all the way to Tallahassee for this game. So it is a weird spot. These conference realignments, man. I'm not sure that Cal has played at Florida State at any point recently. They probably haven't done it since the conference realignment. So it's a weird spot for them, and they could be in a letdown spot coming up those two big games. And they have Miami on deck, which is a huge game. So Cal, they're in a sandwich spot here, man. So it is a bad spot for them. They could definitely overlook a struggling Florida State team. The problem is I don't want Florida State either because after they pulled off their huge upset over Miami in that big rivalry game, they did not suffer the letdown spot last week, and they almost upset SMU. I thought SMU would run them out of the building. SMU, 12-point favorites in that game, and Florida State almost beat them too. Florida State almost only lost by 3. So I don't like how this sets up for Florida State either. Like, they're coming off two huge performances. So I just don't really – I can't get there, man, with either team. Like, based on the line, though, the odds makers are kind of signaling to you something with this line, though. I don't know if there's an injury for California or what, because I don't pay attention to the personnel here, really. Maybe I should, but I just don't. It's just not the way that I do college basketball. You got to have shortcuts when you're handicapping all these teams, man. But the fact that Florida's a 3-point favorite, 3.5-point favorite, up from 1.5, and the market read is all over them, I would have to lean to Florida State here for those reasons, and it just looks way too easy to take Cal plus the points. So I lean Florida State, but I'm not going to play the game. I also think the number's a little bit out of whack based on, the power ratings and what Ken Palm says and stuff, so I'm going to stay away. 83% of the tickets are on Cal, 65% of the cash on Florida State, though. And like I said, I think the situation is actually bad for both teams. Why does UNC have another week off? Yeah, it's not good because they're coming off a big win over Virginia. You don't want to have a lot of time off. Garrett, what's up, man? You don't want to have a lot of time off after pulling off a big win, an upset win like that against a ranked team. Virginia had a crazy game last night that went into overtime to beat Notre Dame after they came back against Notre Dame, by the way. That was a crazy game, but yeah. I don't know, because UNC probably had a week off to travel when they went out to California, right? So I don't know. I don't know what the schedule makers are doing, but that break, is too long. It might disrupt their momentum. I'm assuming they're playing on Saturday probably. I don't know. Okay, what do we have next here? I mean, if you want me to talk about some other games, I will, but I'm trying to obviously find a way to shorten the show a little bit here. We don't have too much hockey today, though, so that's good. Only 3 hockey games. Oakland and IPFW is probably the best Horizon game here today. Oakland, I know their overall record doesn't look good, but that's because they played a really difficult out-of-conference schedule. They're up near the top of the Horizon, man. They're one of the better teams in the Horizon. Wright State and Oakland are the top 2 teams, but IPFW is not that far behind them, and that's who Oakland is playing here. Now, this is a second meeting. Oakland already beat IPFW at home, I believe. Yeah, because this is at IPFW. Yeah, Oakland beat them in a very high-scoring game, 101-92 at Oakland. So there is a little bit of maybe a revenge motive here for IPFW, or, a spot where IPFW might fix some things that were wrong in that game and play better here. Oakland does have Northern Kentucky next, which is a big game too, but IPFW is ahead of Northern Kentucky in the standings, so I don't really see either team overlooking this game, man. Oakland's coming up beating Detroit Mercy on the road, which is kind of whatever. They're an okay team this year in the conference. Purdue also just beat Detroit Mercy on the road. They were supposed to play against IU Indianapolis, IUPUI, and that game got postponed. So IPFW has a longer break here, and I think that's actually bad because they had 5 wins in a row, and like I was just saying with Garrett there, you do not want to have a break like this when you're on a winning streak like this. You want to play through. You want to keep playing, man. So this might disrupt IPFW's momentum a little bit, even though this is a revenge game for them, if you want to call it that, or like an adjustment game for them where they might adjust to Oakland. So it's not all bad. I do still expect both teams to show up, but that time off might be disruptive for IPFW, and it looks like IPFW is kind of turning into a public underdog here. 81% of the tickets and 75% of the cash on them. So for some reason, I think it's because of the overall records, right? Like, again, Oakland's overall record doesn't look as good. But, again, that's because they played, like, Michigan, Houston. Like, they played all these really good teams out of conference. There's another one in there that I'm forgetting. Purdue, I think. And they actually played pretty well against Purdue. The other 2 teams blew them out. And they played UCF pretty close, too. So Oakland has a much more difficult out-of-conference schedule behind them, so that's why their record doesn't look as good. But the odds makers are telling you Oakland is the better team here. And because of the disruptive extra time off for IPFW, I'll lean to Oakland. I'll lean to Oakland as well here. Oakland dropped from 2.5 to 1.5 here. It does look like IPFW is getting the public action. A very dreaded public home underdog in that one, it looks like. So, yeah, I'll lean to Oakland in that one, but I don't have it on my card or anything like that. They're playing Georgia Tech. Well, they should win that game, even though it is on the road. Obviously, they'll be a favorite in that game. And, maybe it'll be a game where North Carolina overlooks them, wins the game, and doesn't cover. I don't know. But I'll probably be leaning to Georgia Tech in that game. But I don't know what Georgia Tech has done leading up to that. I think Georgia Tech did just play pretty well against some superior team. I think against Virginia Tech in their last game. So I don't know. IU Indy at Robert Morris here. This is an interesting game. IU Indy just pulled off a big upset of Oakland. So wait, when did that happen? Wait a minute. I just talked about Oakland. Oh, yeah, Oakland bounced back already and beat Detroit Mercy after that. Okay. Yeah, that's why I didn't notice that with that other handicap. But yeah, IU Indy beat Oakland at Oakland. That was a huge win for IU Indy. They're not a good team. And they upset. That was a 14.5-point upset against one of the top teams in the conference. So you've got to think they're going to be in letdown mode, man. And then they were supposed to play IPFW. The game got postponed. So now they're just sitting on this Oakland win. And I think that's bad because you can keep thinking about that win. You have the extra time off. Now you went into that break on a huge note, like on a good note. You're going on the road again. You're playing Robert Morris. You probably came back home expecting to play IPFW, although at least for them that was only going from Indy to Fort Wayne. But now they got to go over to Pittsburgh to play Robert Morris. Now, Robert Morris did win the conference last year, but that's probably not enough to totally focus on them here because Robert Morris hasn't been as good this year, and IU Indy already beat Robert Morris. They had only one conference win until they beat Oakland, and that win was against Robert Morris in overtime, I think, at home in an upset. Robert Morris was a road favorite there, so Robert Morris might have a little bit of revenge on their minds here, and I kind of like that angle, too, when the better team lost as a favorite in the first game. They tend to bounce back in the second game, especially when they're at home. If they lost as a road favorite in the first of the conference matchups, they tend to bounce back, man. So I like Robert Morris in this game. IU Indy, I think, in a major letdown and revenge for Robert Morris. But the problem is Robert Morris just played pretty well against Green Bay. They had a big game. Green Bay's been playing pretty well, man. So that was kind of a big game. And Robert Morris has IPFW and then Wright State in the next two games. And those are two of the top three teams standing-wise in the conference. So this is the game. It looks a little bit sandwichy to me, man. Although, again, because they did lose to IU Indy, I don't think they overlooked them. So this one was very, very close to making my card. I just didn't totally check all the boxes. I like Robert Morris. I would lay the points with Robert Morris. They're down from 10-9 on the line, though, so the line did initially drop. But I would lay it with Robert Morris. The fact the total has dropped kind of helps Robert Morris here because IUPUI is the fastest-paced team in the country. That's all they do is they play ridiculously fast and they play no defense at all. So the fact that they play no defense should help Robert Morris be able to score points here, probably enough to cover that thing. But the fact the total's gone down, I think, also kind of helps Robert Morris because they don't want to play as fast as IUPUI does. So it's kind of a crazy game. UNC doesn't do well at Georgia Tech. Yeah, I believe that. Georgia Tech, yeah, they tend to step it up against these big teams, against the Blue Bloods. SEC Network has two games at once at 7 p.m. Mississippi State at LSU is probably the less interesting of the two. Mississippi State's on a 5-game slide here, and they just got drilled at home by Vandy. Vandy's good. I mean, we saw Vandy look really good last night, I'm pretty sure, as well. Yeah, I was right about that. They absolutely trounced Kentucky last night. So the tales of Vandy's demise, like I said, were premature, let's just say. Mississippi State got killed by them, so you got to think that they're going to show up for a game here. I mean, nobody wants to lose that ugly to anybody. So I expect Mississippi State to show up after a loss like that, even though LSU has only had one conference win so far. The spot sets up more difficult for LSU, I would say, because they just had a good game at Arkansas, and they almost pulled off the upset at Arkansas. This was, it would have been a double-digit upset. Arkansas were 10.5-point favorites in that game. So LSU, I talk about that when huge underdogs fall just short, they tend to not play well in the next game, man. Although LSU has been better at home. They beat Missouri here, and they almost beat Kentucky at home. So they've been better at home in conference play. But I think the spot doesn't set up very well for them, man. They're coming off the much tougher game, whereas Mississippi State is kind of in more of a bounce back. I wish LSU had a bigger game up next than South Carolina, although it is revenge. At least LSU did lose to South Carolina at home, but South Carolina is near the bottom of the standings too, so I don't really know how big of a look ahead that really is, even though they did beat LSU at LSU, and that was their by far their worst home conference loss. So maybe they will kind of look ahead to that and want to get that revenge there. So I like Mississippi State in this game. It's not on my card, but the situation seems to me to set up that way. The money seems to not agree, actually. LSU initially dropped from 8.5 to 6, but it looks like that might have been like a false move or a fake out, or maybe pregame just has the numbers wrong on this or something, because I don't know, man, because when you see a line drop like this, then you see the cash percentage reflecting the opposite, you got to try to figure out, like, well, what's going on here? Why did that happen? And 7 is kind of a key number in basketball, so I don't know if maybe professionals came in and faked the books out, and they actually wanted LSU here, but they slammed the line down on LSU to get a better number on it. I don't know, because we see 69% of the tickets on Mississippi State, but 55% of the cash on LSU. So the money is saying LSU here. I don't agree with it. I worry about fading a market read like this, though, but I would take the points with Mississippi State based on the situation, but you are getting less value on it now that the line has dropped. But that would be my opinion in that. And then we have Tennessee at Georgia, which is the better of these two 7 p.m. SEC network games. Tennessee, they just had a big win over Alabama, man. So that was a nice bounce-back win for them after Tennessee lost as a home favorite to Kentucky. Big win over Alabama. Could be in a little bit of a letdown spot of that, although Tennessee's now beaten Alabama 5 times in a row. So I don't know how big they really consider that to be, but they beat Alabama, which is big, but they also have Auburn on deck, and that's kind of a big game too, although I think, as we talk about Auburn, but I think it's bigger for Auburn because I believe Tennessee eliminated Auburn from the SEC tournament last year. So I think there's more of a revenge. I think there's a revenge motive on the side of Auburn in that game. So I don't know how much of a look ahead that really will be for Tennessee. Now, will they overlook Georgia? I don't know. They shouldn't, because Georgia's been playing really well. They only have 4 overall losses, although 3 of them in conference. Georgia's been knocked from the rankings, though, and that was because they got blown out by Texas in the last game, and that knocked them from the rankings. But I told you I liked Texas in that game. It was one of those games where you had an unranked favorite against a ranked underdog. Texas was the unranked favorite in the game. They easily got the job done. Texas is very underrated, I think, right now. Like, Ken Pom has them very unlucky. They're much better than their record looks. But now that Georgia got bounced from the rankings, they're coming off an ugly loss like that. I expect them to show up here at home. So I think you do have a bounce-back spot here for Georgia, a letdown spot for Tennessee. I prefer Georgia in this one. That's the way I would lean. Georgia has flipped from a 1-point dog to a pick'em here, but the cash percentage is on Tennessee right now. 65% of the tickets and 85% of the cash on Tennessee. I don't really agree with that, though. I think the spot sets up for Georgia in this game. And it will be a pacing contrast because Georgia plays absurdly fast. They're second in the country tempo-wise, although I don't like teams necessarily that play that fast. Tennessee obviously wants to play slower, so Georgia playing fast might disrupt what Tennessee wants to do. Although Tennessee just saw Alabama, they play really fast too, and Tennessee had no issue really with that. So Tennessee's kind of used to that. So Georgia might not be able to throw them off there. And we have a situation where Georgia is the slightly better offense, but Tennessee is a significantly better defense. So that's what we have going on in that game. And if Georgia's a favorite, then Tennessee technically becomes the better defense getting points there. But I'm staying away from the game. Texas at Auburn on ESPN2. This is, I basically just mentioned this game because Texas, these two teams just played those other two teams I just talked about. Texas just beat Georgia. Pretty big win, knocked Georgia from the rankings. Now they're going to go on the road. They got to go on the road, to play Auburn. Texas has been okay on the road, though. I mean, they beat Alabama on the road. They came close to beating Kentucky on the road, so they're not a team that's that bad on the road. They only lost by 8 at UConn. That was at the Hartford Civic Center, though, not in stores, but still. Texas has not been that bad on the road, but it is possible they overlook Auburn just because Auburn hasn't been as good recently, although Texas, they need to bolster their tournament resume right now, man, so they kind of can't overlook anybody right now, and Auburn is ahead of them in the standings at the very least. Although Texas does have the Red River rivalry basketball version up next against Oklahoma, the Red River Shootout. Although, will they really look ahead to Oklahoma? And Oklahoma's been terrible this year. Probably not. For Auburn here, Auburn just beat Florida, though, man. That was a monster revenge game for Auburn there against Florida. Final Four revenge. As you know, Florida was the team that beat Auburn in the Final Four. That was a monster win for Auburn. So they're in a pretty major letdown spot here. Probably more than Texas is, because Texas, their win was as a favorite. Auburn's win was as a monster underdog on the road. And they got Tennessee up next. Then Alabama, Vandy, Arkansas all in a row. So this is pretty much a sandwich spot for for Auburn. And like I said, I'm pretty sure the Tennessee game is going to be a revenge game. Yeah, because Auburn lost in the SEC tournament to Tennessee last year. Although I don't know how big of revenge that really is, because, it didn't end Auburn's season, obviously. Auburn just didn't care that much about the SEC tournament last year because they were already locked into the overall 1 seed in the tournament. It didn't even matter. So maybe Auburn doesn't care that much about that. But that is still a bit of a revenge game there, I think, for Auburn coming up against Tennessee there. So I actually prefer Texas in this game, but the money is disagreeing. Auburn's up from 5.5 to 6.5 here. 64% of the tickets and 88% of the cash on Auburn. Looks like the money's coming in on Auburn. I don't agree with it. Both these teams do have something to play for, though. Like, they both need to show up as far as their tournament lives are concerned. Like, they both need to bolster their tournament resumes right now because they're both tournament bubble teams. Although Texas is in a more dire situation as far as getting into the tournament, and they're an underdog here, and I think the situation is better for them. So I lean Texas plus the points in that game. And they're, I think, the more underrated commodity as well. I think both teams are actually a little bit underrated, though. West Georgia at Bellarmine is my next play, man. I keep forgetting to put the best bets graphic up, but there you go. The show's going to take a while. We're going to lay the points here as well, man. We're going to be on Bellarmine, -5.5 here, which looks ridiculous. Like, why would you want to lay points with Bellarmine when they're 7-13 overall, 2-6 in the Atlantic Sun? West Georgia's 10-10 overall and 4-4 in the A-Sun, right? Nobody's going to do this. Nobody's going to lay points with Bellarmine. By the way, I think you might be able to get 5 on this instead of 5.5. Absolutely nobody's going to do this, but the odds makers are telling you that Bellarmine is actually the better team here, so this is a little bit of a numbers play, but this is a numbers play and a situational play at the same time, man. So I'm trying to find the combination of both kind of at the same time. Now, if you look at Ken Bum, yes, Bellarmine is horrible defensively, which is not really what you want to do when you're laying points. You don't really want – it's not what you want when you're laying points. They're the 4th worst defense in college basketball. So, yes, that's bad, really bad. But I'm going to show you what West Georgia looks like in a second. Bellarmine is almost in the top 100 offensively, though. So they're very efficient offensively. They're bad defensively, and I don't know what the deal is with that because they play slow. I know we're laying points with a slow-paced team, but they're a very efficient offense for one of these lower-tier teams. So Bellarmine can still score points, man. And even though it's going to be a slow-paced game, I think, as far as both teams are concerned. Bellarmine is fairly unlucky, according to Ken Baum, at 248th in luck. Then if we look at West Georgia, yeah, there's a difference going on there. And actually, West Georgia does play somewhat fast, my mistake. So Bellarmine slowing West Georgia down might actually frustrate West Georgia. But West Georgia, they're terrible on both sides of the ball, dude. You're talking about Bellarmine being horrible defensively. Well, West Georgia's not that much better. West Georgia's 328th defensively, according to Ken Baum. So they're barely the better defense, even though technically they're the better defense getting points. But the huge difference is West Georgia doesn't even make the top 300 offensively. They're awful on both sides of the ball. So the fact that it's 10 is ridiculous. Bellarmine is the better team, according to Ken Palm. He's got them, like 40 ranking spots higher. So he's telling you they're the better team. He might have this line even actually a little bit higher than the 4.5 or whatever. So the numbers check out, and he's got West Georgia as the 3rd luckiest team in the country. So he's telling you this West Georgia team is total ass and that they've completely overperformed, and that's why they're 10-10. But, this gets better because we have a situation here where West Georgia, they just pulled off an upset of Queens, man, at home. And Queens was the only undefeated team left in the A-Sun, and they're probably the 3rd best team in the conference, I would say, behind Austin Peay and Lipscomb. Shout out to Queens coach, who hopefully still follows me on Twitter. I don't know. Haven't seen him in a while. The ugly sweater guy. But that was a huge win for West Georgia over Queens, man. Monster win. Like win of the season type of stuff for a team like West Georgia. Dealing the team that was atop the conference, their first loss, beating the Royals. Zach. I don't know if Zach's out there. 7.5-point underdogs at home. That's what West Georgia was there. Now they play Bellarmine. They already beat Bellarmine once, by the way. They beat Bellarmine at home already. And I believe Bellarmine might have been a road favorite in this game, too. Yeah, Bellarmine was a 1.5-point road favorite. So a line of like 4, 4.5, even 5 might be a little bit short, which I think it is based on Ken Baum's numbers, too. But the fact that Bellarmine was favored on the road to start conference play against West Georgia, this line should actually probably be like 6 based on that. Now, West Georgia, it's possible they overlooked Bellarmine for that reason because they already beat Bellarmine, but also because they're coming off the big win over Queens. But it gets even better for Bellarmine here, or worse for West Georgia, because guess who West Georgia plays next? Oh, yeah, they're playing the team that's now currently atop the conference, Austin Peay, who might be the best team in the conference. It's between them and Lipscomb. That's who they play next. So this is a huge sandwich spot that West Georgia's in. They're coming off a ridiculous upset. They're not as good as their record looks. They already beat Bellarmine once. This is pretty good, man. I like this for Bellarmine. Now, for Bellarmine, they already lost to Queens in a blowout, and people might look at that and say, oh, well, yeah, if Bellarmine got blown out by Queens, they already lost at West Georgia once, and West Georgia beat Queens. This is so easy to take the points with West Georgia, right? It looks so easy to take the points here, but we're not doing that here. Bellarmine, they've had a little bit of a difficult conference schedule. I mean, they have played Lipscomb already on the road. That's not easy. And they played okay in that game, played them to within 10. But now look at what Bellarmine's coming off of, man. They're coming back home from a 4-game road trip, which is usually you don't see that in college basketball. Sometimes just in the smaller conferences, sometimes you will see that because sometimes they're, I don't know. I don't know why it is, because I was going to say they're more spread out, but not really. I don't know why it's the case, but Bellarmine just had 4 straight road games, and that final road game just caught up to them, man, and they had an awful loss to North Florida, who's one of the worst teams in the conference, worse than Bellarmine is. That was a bad loss for Bellarmine, dude. It went into overtime. Bellarmine was the favorite in this game. Bellarmine was a 3-point road favorite. It was a bad game for them, man. Again, North Florida just shot totally out of their minds in this game, although both teams did. Both teams shot 60% or above from the field. But North Florida also hit 19 3-pointers. They hit 50% of their threes in the game. And yeah, North Florida did out-rebound Bellarmine. That worries me a little bit. But North Florida could not miss from 3, even though Bellarmine was hitting threes as well. North Florida just had a really good shooting game. Couldn't miss. I don't think that's going to be the case with West Georgia here because, again, they're just really, really bad on both sides of the ball. Bellarmine's the much better offensive team here. They're coming off a really bad loss. West Georgia's in a terrible spot. Yes, Bellarmine has Queens next, but I don't see them overlooking that, coming back home after a bad loss to North Florida. Also, as I talk about, when these teams return home from road trips like this in college basketball, and the last time they were at home, they didn't do well. Bellarmine, in this case, lost to North Alabama at home. A lot of times they bounce back and they do better, man. So they do better, man. They do better. They do better, men. So, yes, I think they will be in a situation like that where they want to show up, play better back at home. Bellarmine, again, in conference also, they played a lot of road games so far in conference. They've only played 2 home games so far and 6 road games. So that's part of the reason why Bellarmine's 2-6 right now, man. They're 1-1 in conference play at home and went 1-5 on the road. So they've had a difficult conference schedule so far, in that they've played almost all road games. So being back home should definitely help them here. We're on Bellarmine in this one. I like it for basically every reason in the book. They are up from 4.5 to 5 here. We can call it 5. I think it looks like it's consensus 5 there. I don't know where I got that 5.5 number, to be honest. We'll call it Bellarmine -5 there. Again, like I said, we're laying points all over the place today. That's just the way that it worked out today, man. All right. What else do we have going on here? Where was I at? Oh, yeah. All right. And then, Central Arkansas is at Queens. You might want to look towards Queens in this one. Central Arkansas just beat West Georgia. So people might look at that and think, oh, well, if Central Arkansas just crushed West Georgia on the road and West Georgia beat Queens, well, then Central Arkansas can cover this game as an underdog, right? But I don't see things that way, obviously. I think Queens, coming off just an ugly loss to West Georgia, I think they probably bounce back and play better here. But the worry is they just lost a long win streak, and I talk about that. When teams lose their long win streak, they take their first conference loss this deep into conference play. Sometimes it will hang them over into the next game. So that is the one concern with Queens there. But overall, I probably lean towards Queens to bounce back in that one. They're up from a 4.5-point favorite basically to a 6.5-point favorite already. So the line move did kind of go in their direction, and I don't disagree with it, but it's a stay away from me in that one. We have Evansville at Drake. I think I looked at this game and there was something interesting about it. Evansville just got drilled by Illinois-Chicago. Horrible loss for Evansville, even though Illinois-Chicago's been playing better this year than we thought. But when you lose by almost 30 points to anybody, man, you're going to want to bounce back from that. And Evansville had a game against Southern Illinois postponed, like I mentioned. So they have extra time off to break this losing momentum. So I think that's pretty helpful to them. Now they're playing Drake, and Drake already actually beat Evansville at home already in Evansville. So it's a little bit of a road revenge angle here. Evansville is one of those avenging road dogs here. They do play Northern Iowa next. So Northern Iowa kind of middle of the pack standings-wise here. So they might not be looking ahead to Northern Iowa here. They might focus on Drake. Drake, of course, at least won the conference last year, even though they're a totally different team this year and not as good. Now, whoops, I clicked on the wrong team here. Drake, what did they just do? They just beat Indiana State on the road. I think that was probably a slight upset. Yeah, they were 3.5-point dogs, and that was. So Drake is coming off beating Murray State and then beating Indiana State. So they didn't really have a letdown in that game at all. They pulled off pulled off an upset there. I think the home win against Murray State probably was an upset as well. Yeah, 4.5. Big win. I think that was Murray State's first conference loss. And Drake has Bradley and Belmont and Illinois State in their next 3 games. And those are pretty much the top 3 teams in the conference, except for Murray State. Excuse me. Sorry, I keep forgetting Murray State, even though I just talked about them. Sorry, Murray State. I keep forgetting about you. But this is a sandwich spot that Drake is in, man. So I like Evansville in this game for a bunch of reasons. I have a hesitation just because that upset that Drake just pulled over Indiana State wasn't exactly that massive. The line has moved up from 9 to 9.5 with Drake here, but I would take the points with Evansville in that one, man, if I was going to do anything with it. Total's fairly low, 141, but I think Evansville is the right side there. And fading the Drake would be the way to go in that one, in my opinion.
Boy, I'm really starting to dislike the Drake.
Hate the Drake.
Hate the Drake in that one. All right. I don't hate them in that game. I dislike the Drake in that game. Xavier at Seton Hall as we finally get into the 7:30 games here. We have a lot of fucking games here, man. This is insane. I'm trying to keep it to mostly just the TV games and the better games that are interesting as well. But, all right. Xavier at Seton Hall. This is a best bet as well. We're laying points in this one too, man, even though I know we're doing it again with a slow team. We're laying points with slow teams here, man, all over the place. And this is another one. But this is just the way it worked out today. We're going to lay 6.5 with Seton Hall in this one. And the market is not agreeing with me on this one at all. And I don't understand it. Seton Hall dropped from 7 to now. You might be able to get 6 on this. 78% of tickets and only 68% of the cash on Seton Hall. They're public, and the market read is going completely against them, but I don't get it at all, man. I think Xavier is in a really bad spot here because they just almost pulled off that upset against St. John's, man. Huge game. Like I said, it was the battle of the Patinos. Richard Pitino doesn't look too happy right there. This is a massive game for Xavier, man, and they could have won the game potentially. They had a huge lead in this game. Look at this. Xavier was winning the majority of the game. They had a giant lead in the game, double-digit lead for a decent chunk of the second half, and they gave it away, but then didn't quite give the whole thing away, and then pushed the lead again. Looked like they might be able to win the game. Then they fell behind, didn't go away. The game was tied with whatever that was. I can't really see because I'm zoomed in. Yeah, with 1 minute left, basically, the game was tied. And then Xavier fell just short at the end. Brutal loss for Xavier. That was a monster game for them against St. John's. I thought they were double digit. I thought they were double digit dogs, my mistake. I thought it was like 10.5. It was 8.5. My mistake in that one. But still, that was a monster game for Xavier in that one. Now they're going to go all the way to New Jersey from Cincinnati off of that game. And by the way, the game before that, they played Creighton to within 1 point. So they're coming off 2 big games. They were 8.5-point underdogs in that game. They almost upset Creighton. So now they're coming off 2 near upsets. And now they got to go on the road to face this Seton Hall team that might be getting a little bit desperate, man, because they're kind of fading into they're in like bubble territory big time in the tournament now because they've lost 4 games in a row. And if they want to make the tournament for the first time in a few years, they got to get a win, man. So they can't afford to lose this game. So I think they're going to be focused on this game, man. And they're coming back home. And this is what I talk about with a team that isn't playing well. They come back home, and their last home game they lost to Butler in this case. I think they bounced back nicely, and they want to get that home win. They actually lost the previous home game as well to UConn, but I think that's why they lost to Butler so bad, because they were coming off a huge game against Connecticut, and they had St. John's on deck. I believe I gave you guys Butler as a play, I think, in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Butler got the outright win for us there on that one in what was a major sandwich spot for Seton Hall. I'm pretty sure I gave that out as a play. So that was an explainable loss against Butler. Then Seton Hall played really well against St. John's on the road. And then what did we do? We faded them in the next game on Saturday. They had to go out to DePaul. They did not have a good game, man. Seton Hall was off that huge game against St. John's, had the hangover spot, lost to DePaul. Well, now it's Xavier that's in the spot coming off the game against St. John's. And I think that was an even bigger deal for Xavier because it was the Patino clash for the first time this year. And Xavier blew a massive lead and almost had the upset win there, the outright win. Would have been huge for Xavier. Yeah, I think this is a horrible spot now for Xavier for that reason. And for Seton Hall, they were in that type of spot last week, although maybe slightly less bad. They took the loss. We got the win with DePaul in that one. Now Seton Hall's coming off kind of an ugly loss to DePaul. They've lost 4 games in a row. They're back at home. They only play Marquette next, and they lost their last 2 home games. To me, this spot sets up way better for Seton Hall. The only way that I think you can look at this game is to play Seton Hall, man. I just don't get it. I don't get what the market is seeing with Xavier here. I know Seton Hall's not that great, KenPom-wise, 51st. They're bad offensively, and I know that's not great when we're laying points here, but they're a top 10 defensive team, so they're great defensively. 271st in tempo, of course, like I said, they do play slow. But Xavier likes to play way faster, so that might frustrate Xavier, the fact that Seton Hall is going to slow the game way down. KenPom has Seton Hall pretty unlucky at this point, at 273rd in luck. Meanwhile, that's not the case with Xavier. He's got Xavier a bit luckier at 138th in luck. So Xavier's the luckier team. Xavier plays fast, and he's got Xavier 85th overall, but he has them only in the top 90 barely offensively, and then he has them outside of the top 90 defensively. So I don't see how Xavier is actually 85th based on that. I don't understand that. Don't know how KenPom's rankings are working there in that case, but clearly Seton Hall is the significantly better team here. Although, again, the public seems to be on the Seton Hall side, and of course, we know, Seton Hall has the better record, so it kind of makes sense that the public would be on them, but I don't think, if that's the case, I don't think they're wrong. I like Seton Hall in that game. All right, let's keep this going, man. Belmont at Valparaiso. I think I looked at this game briefly. Belmont just got a pretty big win over Illinois State, and they got Murray State on deck, man. So this game is sandwiched in between 2 of the bigger teams in the conference, 2 of the better teams in the conference. So it's a sandwich spot that Belmont is in, and they did already beat Valpo at home, but it was a close game. Valpo kind of gave them a run for their money, and Belmont only won that game by 4, so you could make the argument that that will cause Belmont to actually take them seriously, but I don't know, man. The fact they beat Illinois State and they got Murray State on deck, it's a little bit of a revenge spot for Valpo, and you know Valpo will not overlook Belmont. The spot looks a little bit better for Valpo here to me, but they are coming off beating Southern Illinois at home, and that was off of beating Northern Iowa in a game where we unfortunately took the loss in that game. So they're coming off 2 okay wins, but I don't think they're going to be in a hangover spot or anything like that off of those games. They're going to show up with Belmont coming into their place, so I would prefer Valpo in this one. It's not a play for me, but Belmont dropped from 5 to 4.5 here. It actually looks pretty easy to lay the points with Belmont, the team with the better record, not laying that many points here. But I like Valpo. Like I said, 60% of the tickets and 62% of the cash on Belmont. Hard to read what those percentages really mean. But yeah, my preference is definitely Belmont in that one. North Texas at Tulsa. North Texas, like I said, they're coming off that horrendous home loss to ECU. East Carolina. North Texas was a huge favorite in that game, and they might have been looking ahead to Tulsa, man, because they had a bad game. And when teams have bad games, a lot of times they bounce back nicely in the next game. So, especially if they had a bad game as a favorite, because they're a decent team that just took a really, really ugly loss. So I think North Texas will show up in this game. But for Tulsa, as I already pointed out, they had a pretty bad game themselves against Rice. And I think that was a bit of a sandwich spot because they'd beaten Memphis the game before that, which is always a big win in the American Conference. And they had this North Texas game on deck, and then Wichita, and then FAU, and then South Florida, and then UAB, and then Wichita again. So that Rice game was like the obvious down spot in the schedule for Tulsa. So I see them bouncing back in this game as well. So I think both teams will show up for this game. So this game, it's difficult to figure out what to do with it. It looks like North Texas is public. 86% of the tickets and only 71% of the cash on them. Tulsa did drop from 10.5 to 9.5 here, but it looks like North Texas is the public road underdog here. And when that's the case, you usually want to look towards the favorite here. So I won't really disagree with Tulsa. They are the better team, I think, here. Ken Bum has them 60th overall, but he does have them pretty lucky. They're a mid-tempo team, and they're way better offensively than defensively, though. North Texas is the significantly better defense, though, but they're very bad offensively. They're 145th in Ken Bum's rankings. A slow team, of course, as they always are, and they're in the middle of Ken Bum's luck index, North Texas is. So based on that, I mean, there are some arguments for North Texas here, too. I mean, both teams are in focus spots, bounce-back spots. Total's fairly low. North Texas is the better defense, getting a ton of points. But if Tulsa's able to speed this game up, which they probably want to do, it might throw North Texas out of their element a bit. So I think it's probably side and total kind of correlated here. And the total did go up a little bit. So I think Tulsa and the over are correlated here. North Texas and the under are correlated in that game. For what that's worth. But based on the market read, the lean would be Tulsa in that game, but I don't necessarily love it. I mean, obviously, I'm staying away from the game in its entirety. Okay. I'm going to skip some of these other games. I mean, if you want me to talk about some of these other games, I will, but I'm focused on kind of the TV games, the bigger games, because we've gone already over an hour here, too, and then I got to give you my final plays as well. I only have one more play in one of the late games. DePaul is going to Georgetown here. Now, DePaul just had that nice win at home over Seton Hall. They already beat Georgetown once at home, so it is possible they kind of overlooked Georgetown here, although the next game is against Xavier, who DePaul already actually beat as well. But possible this is a little bit of a revenge spot for Georgetown here. Problem is, Georgetown just pulled off a nice road upset at Providence, so I don't think I really trust Georgetown in this spot either. Both teams are kind of in letdown spots here. So it's a difficult handicap. The money is indicating on DePaul. Georgetown's gone down from 4.5 to 3.5. 71% of tickets on them and only 70% of the cash on them. So the public likes Georgetown. The money is disagreeing with it. I was kind of leaning Georgetown just because there is a little bit of that revenge factor there. And Georgetown did just erase a long win streak, and a long losing streak, excuse me. And if I keep mentioning that when a team has a long losing streak and they break that losing streak, sometimes it gives them new momentum. So I'm not sure I agree with the market read in this one. Now, that was a bigger upset for Georgetown, but they were only 5.5-point dogs. Providence hasn't exactly been that good this year. So Seton Hall has kind of been the better team this year. So, mentally, that might have been a bigger upset for DePaul. So I think I slightly lean Georgetown in that game and against the market read there, but I don't want to play it at all. That's Fox Sports 1 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. ESPN 2 at 9 p.m. Eastern. Number 10, Houston at TCU. Houston's going to try to bounce back. They just had a big game and took a loss to Texas Tech. Texas Tech beat them once last year and beat them once this year. Now, I think both of those games, I think Texas Tech won both games at home, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. But Houston, that was their first conference loss. And again, I'm going to mention this. Houston had a long win streak snap there, so that could hang you over a little bit, man. And it was a big game, so I could see this being a hangover spot for Houston here. They got Cincinnati up next, and Cincinnati did kind of give Houston a run for their money back when they played them on January 3rd. So there is the possibility Houston kind of overlooks this game against TCU. And again, that hangover spot, lose the same game twice spot, could rear its head here for Houston. TCU, they're sort of on the tournament bubble right now, but this would be a huge win for them if they were able to get this. That might put them right back in the tournament mix. So TCU is definitely going to be motivated here. Although they did just get the sweep of Baylor, which was big, but Baylor just hasn't been playing well this year, man. So even though that's good for TCU, that's an in-state rivalry game. This is an in-state big brother here with Houston, man. You know they're not going to overlook Houston. So I would have to take the points with TCU in this game if I was going to do anything with it. Houston's obviously a road favorite here. They're an 8-point favorite. The cash seems to be disagreeing with me on this, though. 69% of the tickets are on Houston, 97% of the cash on Houston. I don't agree. I would take the points with TCU or not play the game. SEC Network at 9 p.m. Number 19, Florida, is at South Carolina. Now, this is going to be a pacing contrast here. Florida likes to go fast. South Carolina likes to go slow generally. So South Carolina is going to try to muddy up this game. And, maybe they'll be able to do it. I mean, South Carolina's a balanced team. They're just not that good. Florida's legit, obviously, as we've seen recently. They've re-legitimized themselves in a big way. But now Florida's coming off a loss to Auburn. So it was an ugly loss for Florida. Auburn got a huge revenge win there. So you could make the argument that Florida will bounce back off of that loss because they lost as a pretty big favorite there. Not a good loss for them. But that ended a win streak for them. They'd won 5 games in a row, so that could hang them over a little bit. South Carolina's going to get up for this, and Florida does play Alabama next. So maybe that's a little bit of a concern there. There's a look-ahead spot there to a big ABC game. So we will see. South Carolina coming into this game off of losing badly to Texas A&M, and now they're coming back home. They did win at home in their last game. South Carolina has actually been okay at home in conference play. They beat Oklahoma the last time they were here, although Oklahoma hasn't been that good this year. They only lost to Georgia by 5 on this floor, and they lost by 12 to Vandy. Not a bad loss there either. So South Carolina's been okay at home, and they're going to step up for this. I think the spot's a little bit better for South Carolina here. I would lean that way, and again, the money's not agreeing with me. Florida's gone up from 12 to 13, 13.5 almost here. 77% of the tickets on Florida, 96% of the cash on Florida. So they do have more of the cash percentage there, but I would disagree. I would take the points with South Carolina if I was going to play that game. But again, it's not on my card. Wyoming at Utah State is on CBS Sports, 9 p.m. It's not that interesting of a game. Wyoming did just break a 4-game losing streak, though, so they should probably show up in this game and have some new momentum because they just won against San Jose State. Not an impressive win, though. So Wyoming was able to break their losing momentum, and it was a bad game. At the same time, they almost lost as 13.5-point favorites. So they might have been looking ahead here. They'd come off a game against Boise, too, so it was kind of a sandwich spot. But I think it's good for Wyoming that they didn't play well as a big favorite, and they still got the win. So that will give them focus, but they will have momentum coming into this game against Utah State. Now, Utah State did bounce back after losing 2 games. They bounced back, and they beat Colorado State on the road. But that was a decent win. So even though that might give them some new momentum here, they got San Diego State and New Mexico up next. So those are 2 bigger games than this. So I think I would probably lean towards Wyoming in this game. And again, it looks like the market doesn't agree. The market looks like the cash percentages on Utah State, they're up from 13 to 14.5. Yeah, they are the better team here, but the total's fairly low, and I think Utah State likes to go fast. Wyoming likes to go slow. Utah State's actually more of a mid-tempo team this year, so my mistake, but Wyoming is still one of the slower teams. What was I looking? Oh, yeah, the market read. Yeah, Utah State up to 14.5 here from 13. It is a fairly low total, which does maybe mean that it'll be more difficult for them to cover a large point spread here. 80% of the tickets and 97% of the cash on Utah State, though, so the money's kind of indicating on Utah State there. I lean the other way. I would take the points with Wyoming, but I'm staying away, man. And then we got Illinois State at Murray State. This is going to be one of the better games in the Missouri Valley here today. Illinois State's not that bad. Murray State also pretty good. Illinois State did just lose to Belmont, but they lost by double digits. Don't think they're going to overlook Murray State here, man. I don't think these teams have played yet this year. Yeah, they play again later this year. So I think Illinois State should show up here. Murray State did just take that loss to Northern Iowa. Second straight loss for them, but maybe they were hung over because Drake gave them their first conference loss. And yet again, we see another instance of this, man. When a team takes that first conference loss, they get hung over and they lose the next game. So it's happening a lot this year. I think it is a strong angle. I haven't used it as far as my plays this year, really, but it is a strong angle. Maybe I should weigh it more strongly. I don't know. But Murray State, now that they lost that second game in a row, I kind of expect them to bounce back here as well. They do have Belmont on deck, which will be a big game. And Murray State has not faced a terribly difficult conference schedule yet. They're up from 3 to 3.5 here. I honestly don't know what to do with this game. Ken Bum has Murray State 89th. They're a very fast team because they're the Racers. They play offense and they don't play defense very well. They're a little bit lucky, according to Ken Bum. They're playing, who are they playing again here? Illinois State. Ken Bum has Illinois State actually slightly better than Murray State. He's got Illinois State as the better defense. They play slower, and they're less lucky. So, maybe I would lean to Illinois State in this game, plus the points, because they're the better defense. If both teams show up, Murray State's going to try to speed them up, and maybe that will throw them out of their element. It's another game where maybe total and side probably correlated in this game. Murray State probably correlated to an over, and Illinois State probably correlated to an under, because Illinois State wants it to be a slow defensive game, and I would slightly lean that way, even though the total ticked up a little bit, but not a really strong opinion for me there. ESPN-U has South Florida at Tulane at 9 p.m. South Florida is definitely the better of these teams. Tulane started out hot in conference play, but they've had a huge drop-off because they're not really that good. South Florida, though, they just beat Florida Atlantic, man. That was a big win for them. And they have Temple on deck, who's right behind them in the standings. So I think they could easily overlook Tulane in this spot. I think it is a sandwich spot that South Florida is in here, man. Beating Florida Atlantic was big. Florida Atlantic atop the conference right now. Tulane might come into this with some motivation here because they've lost 4 games in a row, and that is never good, obviously. So I don't think that they're going to be unfocused coming into this game, to put it mildly. They should show up for a game against South Florida. I like Tulane in this one. This one was somewhat close to making my card. South Florida's an 8.5-point road favorite. 67% of tickets on them, 83% of the cash on Tulane. I agree with Tulane in this one. I think it is pretty much a sandwich spot for South Florida there. I don't think it's one of those like mega sandwich spots or anything like that, where I don't think like South Florida, South Florida was a favorite against Florida Atlantic. So even though that was a huge win, they were expected to win that game, and I liked them to win that game. So I don't know how big of a letdown it really is for them, but yes, I lean towards Tulane in the game. Minnesota at Wisconsin. This is a rematch and road revenge angle for Minnesota, although they played well at home against Wisconsin, and I thought we were going to get the win with Minnesota. That was a play for us on the show because it was after Wisconsin beat Michigan. So I thought Wisconsin was in a major letdown spot, and Minnesota let us down and missed the cover by like 1.5 points there. And Minnesota has not won since then. They've lost 5 games in a row. That was the second of that 5-game losing streak. But they had to play Illinois on the road, Ohio State on the road. Played okay in both those games. Lost to Nebraska. I mean, what else is new? We just saw Nebraska almost beat Michigan last night on the road, which I didn't expect. I thought Michigan would have an easier time winning that game. Crazy. Nebraska did take their first loss, though, in the end. But anyway, Minnesota losing to Nebraska is not a horrible loss for them by any means. I think they will show up. I mean, they've lost far too many games in a row now. A little bit of a revenge angle here because they lost at home to Wisconsin. I think they will show up here. Wisconsin, though, they took that loss to USC in their last game, like I said, but that did end a 5-game winning streak for them. So you got to worry that might hang them over a little bit, even though they did lose as a favorite. And sometimes you bounce back when you lose as a favorite, but when you lose a long win streak, it might hang you over, man. And they do have Ohio State and Indiana and Illinois, Michigan State, Ohio State, or Iowa, all up now. Not Oregon. Oregon's after that, but Oregon would not be a look ahead. But those next 5 games or 6 games that Wisconsin plays are all bigger than this game. So I would prefer Minnesota in this one. Wisconsin is an 8.5-point favorite. Looks like they're getting the money too, though. 84% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on Wisconsin. Now 81% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on them. Looks like there are market indicators on Wisconsin there, but I don't agree with it. I would take the points with Minnesota or leave it alone. Stanford at Miami. Stanford having to travel to Miami. Kind of a weird spot for Stanford. Just like with Cal, they're having to travel cross country. Stanford's coming off 2 losses back in California, though. Blown out. They got blown out by Duke, and then they played closer against Cal, but lost that game too. They should be focused here. Maybe it would be good for them to just get out of there, go play at Miami, although it is going to be weird traveling cross country. Miami just beat Syracuse on the road. Decent win, but I don't know if they really overlook Stanford necessarily. Miami's at least staying in the Eastern time zone, but they are coming back home from Syracuse. It's a tough game to figure out what to do with. But I think I would lean to taking the points with Stanford here because they are coming off the uglier game, the uglier performance, a loss. Miami coming off a decent win on the road. Miami dropped from 9 to 8.5 here. 67% of the tickets on Miami. 52% of the cash on Stanford, though. So the money is saying Stanford in this game, and I'll agree with it. I would take the points with Stanford as well in that game. All right, my final play of the day. Not just for college basketball. I do have one in hockey and one in NBA. Best bets. Let's go. I told you it's another favorite. We're gonna lay the points with Pacific in this one. I think Pacific is actually not that bad, as I've been saying all season, and they have a decent looking record, kind of under the radar still, though. The public might want Pacific in this game too if they look at the game, though. Although it's not going to be. I mean, in a big college basketball slate like this, the public's probably not getting involved in this game. Although, yeah, Pacific has the better record, so it does look like you should lay the points with them here. We don't see percentages on this yet. Line's just sitting at 7.5. But in this game, I think it is the right side here, and I think they're the significantly better team over Portland. Ken Bum has Portland just barely in the top 200. He's got them fairly lucky. They're a fast-tempo team as well. Pacific plays slower, so Pacific might try to grind them down a little bit here. And Portland is better on defense than offense, but Pacific is also better on defense than offense, and they're better than Portland on both sides of the ball. Pacific is actually close to being in Ken Bum's top 100. They're similar to Portland in the luck index. So that just kind of cancels out. The candles flame out. No, it just kind of cancels out. But Pacific, yeah, they do like to play a lot slower. I know I don't like to lay points necessarily with a slow-paced team, but at least it's basketball. So it's a game where just a lot of points get scored generally, so it makes it easier to cover. But Pacific's better on both sides of the ball, man. And I think the spot is better for them. And they might frustrate Portland by slowing them down. But look at the spot that Portland is in, man. They just almost beat St. Mary's. They had St. Mary's come to their place, and they lost the game by 6. St. Mary's were 14.5-point favorites in this game, so way better team than Portland. And I don't know what happened because statistically the game was it looks like St. Mary's should have won the game here. They shot 43% from 3. St. Mary's out-rebounded Portland by 10. So it's the only reason St. Mary's really lost this game was that they lost the turnover battle. I guess. I don't really know because I don't see very many disparities in this game statistically. So don't know exactly what happened. Or St. Mary's won the game. Excuse me. They barely won the game. So I don't know. Statistically, it looks like St. Mary's should have won the game by more than they did. So I think it is a little bit of a misleading result there. But Portland was in this game, man. They almost won the game. Portland made a comeback. They were losing most of the game, but they kept coming back. Didn't go away, and the game was within 1 point with 2 minutes left in the game, man. And they were still within one possession pretty late in the game, too. So, huge game for Portland, and now that's what they're coming off of. Horrible spot for Portland because of that. Where, again, when you have a team that was a huge underdog that played really well. I think they tend to not play well in the next game. Coming off of that, I think they're hung over a little bit. Now, Portland also has, they already beat Pacific once at home, and Portland was an underdog in this game, and they beat Pacific in overtime. Portland shot 57% from three-point range in that game, man. So that was a major outlier three-point percentage for Portland there. Pretty much the reason they won. They got out-rebounded in the game. They were 3.5-point dogs in the game, and they beat Pacific. So that's one of those games, man. With Pacific, they're now a home team. Like I said, they're a home team that in the first conference matchup, they lost as a road favorite, and that is a good angle to look at. When you have the better team back at home who lost that first conference matchup as a favorite, they tend to play well, and they don't overlook that team. So I like that for Pacific as well. Portland only plays Washington State up next. Maybe they're not looking ahead to that, but Washington State did beat Portland at home, so that is a little bit of a revenge game. And then they play Gonzaga in the next game after that. So to me, this looks like, not really a sandwich spot necessarily, but it's not a good spot. It's at the very least a letdown spot. And for Pacific, they just beat Seattle, and it wasn't a good performance for Pacific. Pacific was a favorite in this game, although only slightly. Like, Seattle's actually a good team, but I like playing on teams that win ugly, man. And that was an ugly game where both teams stayed in the 50s. And Pacific barely got by that game. They're staying at home. I don't see them overlooking Portland. I mean, Pacific coming off a bad offensive effort. I don't see them overlooking Portland because they already lost to them once on the road. They got San Francisco up next. San Francisco's been okay, but they are behind Pacific in the standings right now, so not necessarily really a look ahead or anything there. I like it. I think it's a horrible spot for Portland. We'll lay the points with Pacific in that game, who are still under the radar, in my opinion, even though Ken Baum has them as kind of a lucky team still. But I don't know. I don't really hear anybody talking about Pacific in that conference, and I think they might be like the fifth best team in that conference. Okay, and then we have FS1, Fox Sports 1 has Colorado State at San Diego State. This is an interesting game. Colorado State just had a close loss to Utah State. They've been playing a lot of these teams close, man, but that was a big game, and they're not going to overlook San Diego State, obviously, because they're atop the conference yet again, one of the best teams in the conference yet again, but Colorado State is going to have to put in a huge effort 2 games in a row, so that might not be easy, whereas San Diego State just bounced back from their loss. Nice, easy win for them over UNLV. Coming into this game with a little bit of momentum, but the problem for San Diego State is they play Utah State next, so they have a huge look ahead here. So that would be the concern with San Diego State. So it's basically a hangover spot versus look ahead spot, but I do think the hangover spot is a little bit worse generally, although the money is coming in on Colorado State, it looks like. San Diego State down from 9 to 8.5 here, 67% of the tickets and 86% of the cash on Colorado State, so the money is saying Colorado State here. I won't disagree with it. I don't have too much of a reason to disagree with that, so I'm fine with that, with the lean to Colorado State plus the points there, but I'm staying away. And then we have CBS Sports at 11 p.m., getting into the real degenerate specials here. West Coast Conference has San Francisco and Santa Clara. Pretty big game. Santa Clara's been really good this year. I don't believe these teams have played yet, right? No, they play again towards the end of the season. But San Francisco, look at what they just did, man. They just went to Gonzaga and played them to within 2 points. So San Francisco is coming off a monster effort against Gonzaga. Gonzaga, an elite team. Gonzaga was winning the entire game pretty much, mostly by double digits. And San Francisco didn't go away and made it really close with a very late run. Really in the final 2 minutes of the game, San Francisco raised a double-digit deficit and came to within 1 score of Gonzaga late in the game. Crazy. So now they're coming off of that, and they shouldn't overlook Santa Clara, man, because this is a big game as well, but how much energy do they have left off of that Gonzaga game? That is the question. And for Santa Clara, they just beat San Diego and didn't cover. That was a game where I gave you San Diego on the show as a play there, and luckily we got it. It was a backdoor cover. Santa Clara played well in the game, and they just packed it in early. I think we got the late cover from San Diego there. But Santa Clara was coming off that huge win over St. Mary's, so I thought they were in at least a letdown spot there. But good for Santa Clara. They continued their momentum into this game. So I think they're going to show up in this game as well. I think both teams will show up. I prefer Santa Clara in this game. The money does agree with that one. I just can't overlook San Francisco coming off that monster game against Gonzaga. And if San Francisco was playing really anybody else in this game besides Santa Clara or St. Mary's, I would be fading San Francisco in this game, and I still think that is the way to go in this game if you do it. 83% of the tickets, 95% of the cash on Santa Clara. They're up from a 9.5-point favorite to a 10-point favorite there. I don't disagree with that market read there. And then UCLA and Oregon to finish it off on the Big Ten Network. Yeah, okay. This game being a Big Ten game still sits pretty odd with me. Now, UCLA, I thought they would be in a letdown off of that Purdue game, and I believe Northwestern covered by a half point against UCLA, but they played well enough to win the game against Northwestern, coming off that big win over Purdue. Now UCLA does have to go on the road, but they're at least going to a familiar venue for them against Oregon. But Oregon's been awful this year, man, so it is possible UCLA starts looking ahead to Indiana up next, and UCLA already beat Oregon once at UCLA by 11, so there's a little bit of maybe a revenge factor here for Oregon. Oregon could make the adjustments here. Oregon's having an atrocious season, losing 6 games in a row, so Oregon might be the team that shows up with more effort in this game. And it could be a slow, ugly game, too. The total's at 136, so game like that, I would probably prefer to have the points as well. I would lean to Oregon plus the points here. UCLA is up from 4 to 4.5. It almost looks too easy to lay the points with UCLA here because everybody just kind of knows UCLA is the better team, and they have the better record, and Oregon's record is just disgusting. So I don't see why the percentages look like this. 77% of the tickets and 84% of the cash on UCLA. Like, I don't get the cash percentage. I mean, public, yes, obviously they're going to be on UCLA, trying to get some of their money back at the end of the day, probably. I don't really know where the cash percentage is going to go from here, but I would take the points with Oregon if I was going to play that. All right, let's do it, man. Hockey, almost done. Hockey, we don't have too many games for hockey, and then we do have NBA. We have New York, in the first game here between the Rangers and the Islanders. Technically a road game for the Rangers, so that's probably a good thing for them. Even though they're staying in New York City, they get to go to Queens or whatever it is and play a road game here. I think it's in Queens. The Islanders no longer play in the Nassau County Coliseum, but I think they play in Queens. Now, the Rangers just ended a 3-game losing streak with a win over the Bruins. Kind of a big win because the Bruins had annihilated them 10-2 the previous time they played them. It was an original 6 matchup. Good win for the Rangers, but I don't think they're going to overlook the Islanders. The Islanders have upstaged them in New York. Like, this season, man, the Islanders have been the better New York team this season, and the Rangers probably don't want to let that stand. And the fact that they ended their losing momentum, the fact that this is not at home, where the Islanders have been terrible at home, I think the Rangers might show up for this one, man. The Rangers 16-12-2 on the road. That's gotten a little bit worse, but they're still pretty good on the road. The Islanders have been pretty decent at home, though. 14-9-2 at home. They've actually been good both home and away. For the Islanders, though, they're coming off that destruction of Philadelphia. But remember, that was a spot I gave you guys that play on the show. Philadelphia, I believe, was returning home from a road trip and was coming off an upset of Colorado. So it was a horrible spot for Philadelphia, and I think they had a look ahead as well, maybe, or I forget what it was. Although I don't really think they were going to I didn't think they were going to overlook the Islanders. I think it was just a bad spot, and I thought the Islanders were in a great bounce back spot of losing 5-0 to Buffalo. Well, now the shoe might be on the other foot here, man. Now the Islanders, they lost that game to Buffalo because they were in a return home spot. It was a horrible spot. I believe that was also a winner on the show, if I'm not mistaken. I think I gave up Buffalo in that game. Maybe I didn't. I forget. I don't remember if I did or if I didn't. I definitely gave up the Islanders in the next game to bounce back. To bounce back. They beat Philadelphia 4-0. But now the Islanders, the shoe is kind of on the other foot now, where they're coming off a satisfying shutout road win. They're playing this Ranger team that, even though they're usually the bigger brother in New York, they're just kind of overlookable now because they haven't played that well this year. So I lean to the Rangers in this game. The market read seems to be all over them. The Islanders already dropped from minus 155 to minus 125, although that might be because of maybe a goaltender switch or something like that. But it is possibly also reverse line movement against a very public Islanders side. 86% of the tickets on the Islanders and only 84% of the cash. So market read looks good for the Rangers here. There's reverse line movement there. The cash percentage is going in the direction of the Rangers as well versus the ticket percentage. So yes, I like the Rangers in that game. The next game up is going to be my play. I'm giving you a play in the TV game for you. That wasn't intentional. I like the spot. It's TNT, True TV, HBO Max. It involves Philadelphia. You probably already know where I'm going to go with this one, because I'll be on a team in one game and I'll be against them in the next game. It's the zigzag nature of sports, man. We're gonna. Or excuse me, I was against Philadelphia in the last game. I was like, wait a minute, what? I was against them in the last game, and now I'm going to be on them this game. Jeffrey probably not showing up because he's mad at me because I faded both Philadelphia teams that day with success. The Flyers and the Sixers both got wrecked that day, and I got them both right for plays on the show. But no bias, man, even though I did say last night on Losercast that Philly is the most violent and atrocious sports fan base, which I don't think there's really a way to disagree with that. But all that aside, sports, I try to exclude bias from it, man, except I do have my biases that are like, this team is not this good, like the Chicago Bears and whatever, but that's at least, at least there are analytics that back that up and stuff. But you got to avoid your, your emotional biases, you know what I mean, even though that kind of becomes one. But whatever the case is, I like the spot here for Philadelphia to bounce back. Now, the shoe is on the other foot for Philadelphia, where they're in a spot where they lost at home. They were in a return home spot. Like I said, they were coming off the huge upset of Colorado, so they were in a terrible spot against the Islanders. We got it right with the Islanders. Now Philadelphia is coming off losing in a shutout at home. And usually teams that lose in a shutout at home, they do play better in the next game. They're starting a road trip. Coming off an ugly loss like that, I do not think they're going to overlook Columbus. They got Boston up next. Bruins have been playing all right, but I just don't really see them overlooking whoever they're playing here, Philadelphia. I don't see them overlooking anybody after that ugly loss like that. So I like it. And on the other hand, I think it's a bad spot for Columbus. And what Columbus did in their last two games might keep Philly focused on them, because Columbus beat Dallas in a shutout at home in this arena that we have this game in tonight, and they beat Tampa 8-5 at home. So Columbus is coming off two monster games, and then they were supposed to play the Kings, but the game got postponed because of weather. So now Columbus is, they have more rest here, but I think that's a bad thing, because when you go into this extra rest off of two monster wins like Columbus did, I think you're just sitting at home, you're just sitting on those wins. Everybody's all fired up, thinking they're all awesome and whatever. I think that this is a letdown spot here for them, man. I think the extra break might hurt their momentum. I wish they had a bigger game up next. They do start a road trip next, but it's only with Chicago. But still, starting a road trip, I don't know. Is there the potential that they look ahead? Maybe, because Philly has kind of turned into kind of a mediocre team. But either way you look at it, that's the play. I like Philly in this game. That's my one hockey play. The market seems to very much agree with it as well. Columbus did move up from minus 130 to minus 135 here, but 70% of the tickets on them, 61% of the cash coming back on the Flyers side. I like the Flyers in this one. We're getting them as a nice dog price around plus 120. Looks like a pros versus Joes setup for this market, at least for now, which I like as well. Philadelphia is the play in that one. Philadelphia. JC, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. Not the Jeffrey JC, the JC. What's up, man? And then the final hockey game is Colorado at Ottawa, which is the game with the biggest line on it, of course, because Colorado is an excellent team. Now, Colorado might also be in an I don't know what I want to say about Colorado here. They just bounced back from having 4 losses over a span of 5 games. They bounced back nicely with a destruction of Toronto on Sunday. Now they've had a couple of days off, but I don't think that they're going to have like momentum disrupted or anything, because really they just disrupted their losing momentum with that win against Toronto. So now they're going to Ottawa. Now, the problem is they did just destroy Ottawa back in Colorado on January 8th, 8-2. So you know Ottawa is going to be gunning for Colorado here. And Colorado does play Montreal and then Detroit twice up next. And they might consider those to be bigger games because Ottawa hasn't played that well recently. Colorado already crushed Ottawa recently. So potential overlook spot for Colorado here. For Ottawa, they just broke a bit of a losing streak as well. They broke a stretch of losing 4 games in 5 games as well, or losing 4 out of 5, I should say as well. But the problem with Ottawa is they destroyed Vegas on Sunday, 7-1. So now they're sitting at home off of that huge win. I can't really do anything with Ottawa off of a win like that. That's a monster win for them, man. So I definitely worry about it. Colorado did drop from -155 to -138, so some reverse line movement there. Don't know if there was a goaltender switch that might have factored into that. I don't know. 93% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on Colorado. Don't know if those percentages are accurate, but Colorado would be a public side. I probably would lean towards taking the price with Ottawa there, but I don't love the game at all. So gave you my one play in hockey, and we have one more play that is in the NBA, and then I will get out of here. We have a decent-sized NBA board today, unfortunately, because I got to talk about all these games here. Holy crap. Actually, no, it's not that big. It's, 8 games, 9 games? Yeah, it's quite a few, but let's run through it, man, because I got to get this show up at least. But I don't think we have any games at noon today, so. Lakers at Cleveland is the first of the ESPN doubleheader, and probably the lesser of the 2 games, although it's not that bad. I mean, the 2 best games of the day are the ESPN games, so I'll give the schedule makers that. The Lakers are coming into this game off of beating Chicago. Fine. They're coming into this game with momentum. Nothing really bad about the spot for them. They should show up for a game against Cleveland. Cleveland, I still think, is a little bit under the radar just because they haven't been very good this year. But now they have won 4 games in a row. But they've done it against mostly questionable teams, Charlotte, Sacramento, and then Orlando. And unfortunately, they won in that zigzag spot against Orlando, where I thought Orlando would zigzag and get us the cover in that game. And that didn't happen. It was just a ridiculous explosion from Cleveland late in that game. Now that's what they're coming off of, but that was kind of a misleading result, man. So I don't know what we want to do with this game, though, because both teams are coming into this game with momentum. They both should show up. The market read looks like it's saying to take the points with the Lakers. Cavs are up from 2.5 to 3 here. 52% of the tickets on them and only 51% of the cash. Seems like the public is kind of split on the game. I thought the Lakers might be public because they are the flashier team, kind of. They have the better record and they're getting points. So I was thinking I might lean to Cleveland in this game, but based on the market, I kind of have to lean to the Lakers, but I don't think the spot is great either way. And then, of course, you do have to look at the personnel because it is the NBA. Austin Reeves is on the verge of coming back, but he's not out. He's not back yet, excuse me. Garland is still out for Cleveland, and then Evan Mobley is out now too. So they've one of their big men has dropped out, which is not great for Cleveland. So, although I don't know if LA necessarily has the size to really do a ton of damage inside against Cleveland. So, I don't have much of an opinion on that game at all. Bulls are at Indiana here. Chicago at Indiana. Bulls, Pacers. Sounds like one of those old 90s playoff matchups, man. The Bulls just lost a 4-game win streak to the Lakers, so sometimes that will hang you over into the next game. So I don't love that aspect of this for the Bulls. Coming off 3 pretty big games, beating Minnesota, beating Boston, and then losing to the Lakers by double digits. I know it's a double-digit loss, but sometimes you don't bounce back right away when you lose a win streak, and it was a big get-up game like that. They do have Miami on deck. And they might look ahead to Miami because Miami's probably at least going to be like a playoff team or something. In the East, they have a winning record at least. Indiana might be in the better spot here, but, well, maybe not. Just looking at who they played last and what they did, they got destroyed by Atlanta, and that was expected because Indiana had upset Oklahoma City in the previous game in a monster revenge spot, a monster upset for Indiana. Normally, I'd say, well, now they were in a letdown spot. Yes, they were. Of course they were. They lost to Atlanta. Didn't give it out as a play, unfortunately. I almost did. And Atlanta did capitalize on that letdown spot. And normally I would say, well, now Indiana's going to bounce back here. But the problem is they're returning home from a road trip. They've been on the road since the 17th, and I talk about this. There are a lot of road trip returns today in the NBA, man, and one of my plays is fading one of those teams, and it's the only one that I deemed strong enough to make a play on, unfortunately, because usually I love these return home spots, but I just have questions about some of them, including this one. Indiana now returning back home from that road trip. Now, they do have Atlanta on deck, and Atlanta did just embarrass them in their last game, so I guess there's the possibility they look ahead, but Atlanta's been pretty bad this year, so I don't know, man. I don't know that Indiana necessarily is going to overlook Chicago, but it is still a return home spot from a long road trip, and as I always say, teams returning home from road trips, they can get distracted. They have to get back to home life. They've been away for a while. They have stuff to do. But then also, of course, I worry about the spot the Bulls are in because the Bulls are coming off that huge game against the Lakers, and that ended a win streak for the Bulls, so I worry about the hangover for the Bulls here. I lean to the Bulls in the game, but I'm going to stay away from it. The Bulls have flipped from a 2-point dog to a 2-point favorite for some reason here. I don't know if the personnel is doing something here. Twig, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. What's up, man? Thanks for checking out the show. Dirty Sock, you have Flyers and Avalanche today. Well, obviously, I agree with the Flyers. That's one of my plays. I don't really agree with the Avs. I worry about that one. Yes, I'll have thoughts on the Celtics. Is that the next game I'm going to talk about? If you stick around, I'm definitely going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about every game. But, yeah, that's the next game, so hold on one second. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But, yes, as far as the market for the Bulls, 74% of the tickets and 86% of the cash on the Bulls. So it looks like the market read, the money is stronger on the Bulls. I don't disagree with it. Like I said, I think the fading the return home spot is one of the best things you can do. So I agree with the Bulls here. I have my reservations about it, though, and then why have the Bulls moved up to like a 2-point favorite is the other question. Like, we already know Giddey has been back for a while now, a few games, so that's not affecting the line move from one game to the next. Indiana looks like they have a pretty clean injury sheet as well, except obviously Halliburton just has missed the entire season. That's not a change from one game to the next. Toppin has been out for a while too, so that doesn't matter either. So I don't know what spurred this line move here. Not a pun, because we're not talking about the Spurs. I don't know what bulled that line move on that. But yeah, the line has moved in the direction of the Bulls, and I don't disagree with it. All right, Atlanta at my Boston Celtics here. As a Boston fan, I'm hoping the Celtics can get another win here. I'm sorry, dude. Firefox is just really messing up for me right now. Hopefully my mouse didn't get affected by the water spill, the great spill of 2026. No, I don't think it did, because my mouse is on the other side from where it spilled, but I don't know. All right, Atlanta, they just obliterated Indiana, of course. They've won 3 games in a row, but they're not going to overlook the Celtics, man. It is a little bit of a weird travel spot, though, having to come up here into cold weather, although, of course, this is not an outdoor game. But, just does Atlanta want to travel up to Boston? I don't know. But I think they will be focused, though, because it is Boston, and they just got embarrassed by Boston in Atlanta back on January 17th. So there is a little bit of a quick revenge motive here for Atlanta. Or maybe not revenge, but it might cause the Celtics to overlook Atlanta a little bit because they easily destroyed them in that game. And Atlanta will have the adjustments to make, whereas if you're the Celtics, you have no adjustments to make there. So I think Indiana does come into this with some focus, some momentum. It's just a little bit weird when you have these single-game travel spots there. They have Houston next tomorrow as well, so that's going to be a weird spot, having to travel back with no time off. But I don't see Atlanta overlooking the Celtics here. Celtics also having a good season, so Celtics are coming up beating Portland. That was a return home spot, but only for a quick road trip there. Celtics beating Portland. I mean, it wasn't a great win or anything. It was a win. They covered, actually, by a half point. Celtics are not exactly in a terrible spot here. They only play Sacramento next. Doesn't really matter. So I don't really see the Celtics being totally unfocused in this game, but they might think that it's going to be a little bit easy to beat the Hawks here. So if I was going to play this game, I would lean to the Hawks and taking the points here. And it looks like there is pretty strong market agreement on that, with the Celtics sitting at around 6.5 here. Public is obviously going to side with the Celtics in this game. 65% of the tickets on them, but 84% of the cash on Atlanta. Looks like kind of a pros versus Joes setup there. So hopefully that gave you the information there. And, I don't really talk about totals much here because I'm just not a totals guy. But I try to focus on sides and try to just nail the sides. But, yeah, in that game, I lean to the Hawks plus the points in that one. I think that quick revenge motive there, and the Celtics might just not take the Hawks that seriously, I think is what the main factor is in that game. The next game up is my actual play, and I'm hoping that the market read is still, oh, well, isn't that great? The market read is not agreeing with me on this one, but we're doing it anyway. We're going to take the, well, let me put the best bets up again. I was hoping to get this show done before noon, but I guess because there are no noontime games, it doesn't really matter that much. But if the people want to listen to it on audio, it's going to be a long-ass show that they can enjoy in the afternoon. We're going to be on the Orlando Magic +3, although it looks like it might be 2.5 at most spots right now. I'd probably still do it at that. It looks like there might still be 3s out there. I saw a few books had a 3 up there a little while ago. We're going to fade the Miami Heat in this game. And, of course, as I said, the Heat are one of these teams that's in a return home spot. So that's one of the strongest spots to fade a team. And this is a fairly long road trip. They've been on the road since Monday the 19th. And they went out to the Pacific Coast, man, and into elevation. So it was one of those cross-country trips from Miami. So I think this is a bad spot for Miami on the return home spot here, man. And they have to go back out on the road tomorrow and play the Bulls. And I know the Bulls haven't been doing that great, but the Bulls in Orlando almost have the same record now. So it's not like one of those games is necessarily going to be that much bigger than the other. And Orlando might be more overlookable right now because they're without Wagner right now, who's one of their best players. And Chicago just got Giddey, their best player, back. So Chicago's more at full strength right now. So there could definitely be some reasons why Miami might not pay attention to this game. But, of course, the big one is it's a return home spot. And I know they have a couple of days off coming back home. But, again, the return home spot, that can just make you settle in a little bit more at home. And when teams return home from long road trips like this, they can get distracted. They got stuff to do back at home. They tend to overlook their opponent more often than they don't. So I think that might be the case here. Orlando hasn't been playing well either. So that's another reason why they might want to overlook that. Well, they don't want to, but they just might have a tendency to overlook them. Miami is also coming up, finishing the road trip with an upset road win of the Phoenix Suns, who they actually beat twice this month already, one at home and one on the road. So decent win that Miami's coming off of as well. And again, tomorrow they actually have to fly up to Chicago. So it is one of these weird spots where it's a return home spot and it's sandwiched in between two. I don't want to call it a road trip because it's only a single game on the road in the next game, but it's still between a road trip and another road game at the very least. It's a very, very weird spot where you just don't have that much time at home to get done what you need to get done. I think Orlando's going to be desperate for a win, man. I mean, they have not won since they went out to Europe there, and they won for Wagner there. And Wagner was playing back then in Europe. They won in Germany. And since then, they haven't won at all. They got zigzagged by Memphis. They came back home. Tough spot to come back from Europe. Lost that game. Then they lost to the Cavs twice. But the Cavs are a good team, man. And I know I gave out Orlando in that last game for the zigzag spot there against Cleveland. But Orlando looked like they were going to be able to get us the cover in this game, man. They were winning the game outright into the second half. The game was fairly close for a while. Then they fell apart. And then statistically, the game was just kind of ridiculous. Cleveland shot 53% from the field. Orlando had 15 more field goal attempts in the game and made fewer field goals still. I mean, that's ridiculous. You almost never see that. Cleveland had 12 more free throw attempts as well, so Cleveland went to the line way more. Just some outliers in this game that should see regression, man. And statistically, the game was closer than the final by quite a bit. I mean, the rebounding battle was close, so a lot of it was free throws and just Orlando missing a lot of their shots, and Cleveland was hitting a lot of their shots. And that was just the deal there. Now, yes, like I said, Orlando is without Wagner, I know, but Suggs is back. I'm pretty sure. Banchero's been playing, so this is still a decent Orlando team, man. And they're in a spot where they're going to be desperate to play well and get a win here. And it looks way too easy to lay the points with Miami, I think, in this game. So I think we're going to see Orlando show up. I know they play on ESPN on Friday against Toronto, but they can't afford to overlook anybody right now. We just kind of explained why they lost those 4 games in a row there, even though one of them was the injured player theory spot, the first one with Wagner out. And usually a team plays better in a spot like that, but whatever. I think that's what I got in that game. If we want to look at the personnel real quicker, I think it's pretty much what I already said. Tyler Hero is still out for Miami, by the way. He's been out for a while. He looks like he might come back tomorrow. So we'll see about that. And then, like I said, Wagner is the one main injury there on the side of Orlando, and he looks like he might come back in their next game as well. But not in this game today. So I don't know what's going on with the market, though, as the Heat have 61% of the tickets and 87% of the cash now. And when I looked this morning, it looked like the money was coming in on the side of the Magic. So I don't know what's happening here. The threes look like they're getting picked off, though. So it looks like some professional bettors are playing the three there. So I don't know. But I like the Magic in that game. That was what I decided on as the strongest play of the NBA slate here. So those are my thoughts there. The Knicks are at Toronto. This line is going to look too easy, I think, for people to play the Knicks here, first of all, man. Although, I don't know, because Toronto's record is pretty good as well. But the fact that Toronto's favored just seems a little bit weird because the Knicks just, like, basically nobody can name any player on the Raptors. You know what I mean? And the Knicks have more star power with Brunson and KAT and whatever. So people, I think, are going to have a tendency to be looking towards the Knicks here. But the Knicks are not very good on the road. They're 9-12 on the road. Toronto hasn't been that great at home, though, either at 13-10. I think Toronto's actually better on the road. As far as the scheduling spot, the Knicks have won 3 in a row. They're on a back-to-back, though, but they had an easy win yesterday against Sacramento. But a back-to-back and having to travel up to Toronto, that's not that easy for the Knicks to do, having to travel between these two games. As far as Toronto is concerned, they did not play yesterday, but Toronto's in a really bad spot, though. Toronto's returning home from a road trip that took them out to the Pacific Coast back on January 18th. They've been on the road since then, and they finished the road trip by upsetting Oklahoma City and pulling off a double-digit upset in Oklahoma City, who, for some reason, lost those 2 games in a row there, man. I don't get what happened, but we know that Indiana had a really bad game coming off that Oklahoma City upset. Toronto may very well have a really bad game as well. I think it's actually a horrible spot for Toronto because, again, it's a letdown spot, but also return home from a road trip. You know, you have stuff to get back to. You can get distracted. My hesitations on giving up the Knicks here as a play are that it looks too easy to play the Knicks. Toronto might not overlook the Knicks because it's the Knicks, so that might actually keep Toronto in check a little bit, although Toronto has to fly down to Orlando after this and play on ESPN on Friday, though. So this is a spot where they're sandwiched in between basically 2 road trips, just like I said with the other game. So it is a bad spot for Toronto where they have to go right back out on the road. So maybe they just are not even able to focus on the Knicks here, man. So that's kind of the issue. But, of course, the other issue is the Knicks are on the back-to-back with travel, and I just don't love playing teams on the back-to-back there. But if I was going to play this game, it would have to be the Knicks. The spot is just so atrocious for Toronto here. The Raptors have gone up from pick 'em to 1.5 here. Hopefully I picked the right game with the Magic, man. I'm hoping. Hopefully we get some magic here. 56% of the tickets, 60% of the cash on the Knicks. Money coming in on the Knicks side. And you just know that I'm probably going to be right on. Probably I'm going to get the Magic wrong, and the Bulls and the Knicks will both be right. Won't that just be so fun? But yes, I would lean to the Knicks in this game, plus the points. Horrible, horrible spot for the Raptors in that game. Charlotte at Memphis. This is a pretty ugly one, although Charlotte's been playing decently recently, as I said. Charlotte is coming off that monster win for us, though. They caught Philadelphia in a good spot. We got the win with that on Monday. You got to think Charlotte might be a little bit overconfident now after a win like that, beating the Sixers by almost 40 points and putting up 130 in the game. That's just crazy. Now, they're starting a road trip with momentum, and I don't know that they're really going to be looking ahead to the Dallas Mavericks in their next game. So they might have that momentum carry into this game, but I don't know, man. I mean, you might just be feeling a little bit too high on yourselves after a win of that magnitude. Memphis is coming off a loss to Houston, and they only lost by 9. We had a win with that, actually. So, actually, Memphis played well in that game. That was another one of our wins on Monday. Those were the 2 wins that we had, along with that Orlando loss, I think. Memphis could have won that game, dude. Memphis played really well as a double-digit underdog in that game at Houston. Memphis had the lead in the 4th quarter in that game, and then they wound up losing by 9 and almost didn't cover. Thankfully, they did, because I think they still wound up with a wire-to-wire cover in that game. We got the cover in that game, but Memphis, that was a big performance from them, man. Now they're coming back home off of that game, so the spot's not great for Memphis, because that game was pretty difficult. So I don't like the spot for either team in this game. The Hornets flipped from a 1.5-point dog to a 2-point favorite here, but it looks like they are public. We have 74% of the tickets and 73% of the cash on the Hornets, so the money is looks like kind of against the Hornets after the line flipped on them. I don't know like what personnel might have flipped the line like that. Not a whole lot going on here. I mean, Zach Edey has been out for a long time for Memphis. He's still out. We know John Morant went down again, or maybe they just don't want him to play anymore. He's been out for a few games, so no real change there. And then, I don't know. I mean, Simpson and Plumlee both out for the Hornets. I think they've been on the injury reports. I don't know. I don't really follow Charlotte's personnel that much, man. So I don't know. But the market read is basically kind of saying towards to take the points with the Grizzlies. But, you know, I don't even know if I agree because the Grizzlies are coming off that monster game where they could have had that upset of Houston and fell just short. So I actually think the Hornets maybe still have momentum coming into this one, even though they're coming off a blowout win. I don't know. I kind of prefer the Hornets in that game. And it looks like I don't think the public's going to want to come in and lay points on the road here, you know, with a team that has still a really ugly-looking record. So, I don't know. I kind of like Charlotte in that one slightly, but no strong opinion there. Minnesota at Dallas. Minnesota was able to zigzag and get the win against Golden State after they lost the day prior to that against Golden State, playing both those games at home. Golden State had gotten their playoff revenge. Of course, that first game got postponed just because Minnesota had to be all woke as usual and postpone the game just because a guy got shot in Minnesota, which if you were postponing games for people dying of gunshots, then the Bulls would never play another game. So, I'm sorry. Like, they'd never play another home game. So I don't know what else to say about that, but it was stupid. But anyway, as far as this game is concerned, Minnesota had a nice zigzag, nice bounce back. They beat Golden State, and that did end a 5-game losing streak for Minnesota. So sometimes when you end a win streak, sometimes it will carry that momentum forward. The problem with that is that was a pretty good win over Golden State. Now they got to go on the road for one game to Dallas, who they might not have total focus on because Dallas is in disarray. And tomorrow on Amazon Prime, Minnesota has to play Oklahoma City, man. And they did beat Oklahoma City the last time they played them, I think. But that is still a monster game to be looking ahead to. So I think it's kind of a sandwich spot for Minnesota here. The problem is Dallas is coming off a big game as well. And I wanted to fade them on Sunday because they were on the back-to-back after blowing the game against the Lakers. They had a chance to beat the Lakers, and that ended a win streak for them. I wanted to fade Dallas because their momentum was snapped. That was a huge game against Minnesota, but their plane got stuck or something, and they couldn't fly to Milwaukee, so the game got postponed. Now they haven't played since then. They've just been sitting around, but I still think that loss of momentum might kind of stick here, man, and they're coming off that game where they almost beat the Lakers. Yeah, they should get up for a game against Minnesota. They have extra rest now, but I still think it's a difficult spot for Dallas. Now, do I think the spot is worse for Minnesota? I guess I would say yes. It's hard to really say, but yeah, I guess I would still lean to Dallas here, but I don't want either team here. The money is saying Dallas for what it's worth. 6.5 is the line here. I think Minnesota dropped from 7 to 6.5. 65% of the tickets are on the T-Wolves and 67% of the cash on Dallas. So it does look like the money is kind of indicating on Dallas in that game. We have Golden State at Utah. Golden State did just take that loss in pretty much a blowout to Minnesota in the second game. Now, having to go to elevation here, but it is a third game in 4 days, and it is a... Wait, is that right? Oh, no, I was going to say it's a fourth game in 5 days, but that's not right. That's because the postponed game is still on the schedule here. I was like, that can't be right. But it is still a third game in 4 days for them, all in different cities, having to go into elevation, and they do play Detroit on ESPN on Friday, so that might be a big look ahead to Detroit. So I don't know if Golden State's going to bounce back because I worry about the look ahead here and the lack of rest and the travel here. Now, Utah's on a back-to-back, though, so extra rest, speaking of rest, Utah doesn't have it. Utah played yesterday, but they did lose again at home to the Clippers, so at least for them, they're staying at home, and they might show up in this game against Golden State, but this is a difficult handicap for me. I guess I would lean to taking the points with the Jazz because they are pretty good at covering at home. They're definitely a better home team than road team. The spot to me does look a little bit worse for Golden State. They're up from 9 to 9.5 here, so they're laying a lot of points. The Warriors are. 55% of tickets, 77% of the cash on the Jazz. Again, it's a stay away from me, but the market read is saying the Jazz. So again, it's ridiculous that the one game that I gave out is disagreeing with the market. So isn't that just great? And then finally, probably the best game of the night on ESPN, San Antonio at Houston, the Battle of Texas. Because Dallas just doesn't even really count at this point. They don't even exist in Texas. Now, San Antonio is coming off a gross loss at home to New Orleans, so you got to think they're going to be bouncing back from that. And they were probably looking ahead to Houston, and the last time they were here, they lost to Houston. Houston won and covered, barely covered. I think Houston were like 4.5 point favorites maybe in that game, believe it or not, against San Antonio. So the odds makers were telling you Houston is the better team out of the two. But in this game, San Antonio might make the adjustments because they did lose that other game. They're coming off that really bad loss to New Orleans. So you might get more focus from San Antonio for that reason. And you might get, a little bit of line value maybe on San Antonio in this one. Houston's coming off that win over Memphis where they almost lost the game to Memphis. So it wasn't a great performance for them either. And that was sandwiched in between Detroit and San Antonio, which is why I gave out Memphis in that game. Because I thought Houston would just look right past them, and pretty much they did. Memphis had chances to win that game, and were winning in the fourth quarter. So now Houston's coming off a pretty bad performance as well. They're staying at home, but based on the fact that Houston won and covered in the last game, they're 4-point favorites. I don't know, man, because it is odd that this line is now basically around 3 or 2.5 here. And the money is coming in on the Rockets, and I think maybe that's because the Rockets were a 4.5 point favorite in that previous game. So the fact that you're getting a shorter line on the Rockets, maybe that's why it looks like the professional money might be coming in on that side on the Rockets. 53% of the tickets and 63% of the cash on the Rockets. I slightly disagree, though. I would be leaning towards taking the points with the Spurs, based on the situation. But, yeah, the line doesn't really set up that great for it. I thought this line might wind up being 4.5, 5 in this one. And then maybe the Spurs would make more sense to take the points there. The line did open at 4, and it dropped. So, I don't know, man. And I don't know if there are injuries on the Houston side here. No. I mean, it's still pretty clean injury sheet in this game. So, not really anything going on there. So, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on that game. That's going to do it. I appreciate everybody for hanging out, man, for a 2+ hour video. Wednesday college basketball, man, it does me in. Maybe I got to start doing the college basketball at night, Tuesday nights after loser cast. That would be difficult, though. But anyway, the plays today, college basketball, we got Bellarmine minus the points, Iowa minus the points, Fordham minus the points, Seton Hall minus the points, Pacific minus the points. We have 5 favorites in college basketball. Rare. It's rare, but I don't avoid favorites, man. Hockey, we got the Flyers money line, and Orlando Magic plus the points in the NBA, man. And that's going to do it. Learn to Toad on Instagram, Learn to Toad on Twitter. Starting to try to do some subscriber content on Twitter. Get some more subscribers rolling in there. The short form betting content, of course, is on Instagram. Of course, subscribe to the channel here. Give me replies. Let's boost this channel because it's been stagnant. I don't like it. Got to boost this thing up, man. Hopefully we could do that. I forget what else I was even going to say. We're on audio. That helps out as well, listening on audio, because it is monetized, though it's not bringing in that much. But if the numbers increase, it'll increase those numbers too. Apple and Spotify, you can give me a good review over there. Listen over there. Covered in Uke is my ukulele channel on YouTube, which is a smaller channel than this. But trying to get content up there whenever I can. But my index finger is busted, man, from just slapping the uke. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know what I did. I don't know if it's a broken bone. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about it. Tendon, maybe, muscle thing, no clue. But I might have to take a rest for a little while at the uke, even though I love playing it. Anyway, covered in uke, on YouTube. Patreon.com/LearnToToad. We got the Patreon there. You can get some bonus uke stuff there as well. And then Losercast, we had another new episode last night. I gave out the very obvious choice this week of Alex Preddy. So you can vote for him if you want to. I think Leighton misspelled his name in the poll, but you can go check that out as well. Check out the show, the new comedy show that I do. And that is going to do it, man. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'll be back, tomorrow morning with the Junk Thursday college basketball slate is what we call it, because usually there are no or very few big conference games on Thursday, but it's all the junk conferences, pretty much, a lot of them playing on Thursday. That's going to do it. I appreciate it, everybody. Peace.